Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today, as we always do on Sundays, we are going to be breaking down all the action that we saw out there in the NFL. We're going to start with Sunday Night Football, as we usually do. Not a thriller tonight, Logan. Interesting game, competitive game, but unfortunately, your hero, your beloved Danny Dimes, could not come through for the New York Giants. They ended up falling 17-7 to the Bengals. What'd you take away from this game?
Dude, I feel a little bad for the Giants. I'm not going to lie. This is the second game this season where I feel like if the Giants had a kicker, they win. You know, you think back to that game they lost against the Commanders where they have to go for a 2-point conversion every time. That ends up biting them in the ass. And then this game, their kicker misses 2 field goals basically at the end. One that would have tied the game earlier in the game, and he puts them back basically against the wall where they have to convert some big fourth downs in this one. The Giants don't feel far away, man. Like they're far away from being like legitimate Super Bowl contenders, but in being a competitive like playoff contender, it doesn't feel like the Giants are that far away. I like the framework for what they've got. Their defense is bordering on elite, right? This is a team that had lost Xavier McKinney last offseason, and they've withstood it pretty well. This is a game where they don't have Kayvon Thibodeau, and they're still able to put immense pressure on the quarterback. I like how they've rebuilt this offensive line. It seems like they've got a stud in Tyrone Tracy. Like, they're close, man. I thought the Giants were going to be, like, among the league's worst teams, and obviously they lose this one. But I'd say they've had some pretty impressive losses, man. And, damn, I don't know, man. It's the margins in the NFL. It's just the second game where your kicker screws you, man. The margin for error is so tough. And, yeah, this was a snooze fest, but the Giants have impressed me, man. Even though they haven't won a ton of games, the Giants have been pretty impressive to me in their losses this year.
I definitely thought that they were going to be worse than this. I thought they'd be on the very short list for worst teams in football. And the reason that they are not is this is an elite defense, dude. I mean, they are fringe top 5 for sure. This pass rush is the best in football right now. I mean, it's unbelievable. This defensive front is dominant. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns ruined this game for the Bengals, made play after play after play. These dudes are living in the backfield. Ojulari was really good in this game. So you have to look at the other side of the ball. I thought that this game was, yes, on Greg Joseph for missing 2 field goals, but I thought it was largely on Daniel Jones. It just felt like Brian Daboll had to coach around his quarterback in this game, right? You're trying to circumvent the very harsh reality that you have Daniel Jones and you're paying him $40 million. The defense was amazing. They gave you an abundance of chances to win. You're facing one of the best offenses in football. You hold them to 10 points deep into this game before the game's effectively over when they have that final rushing touchdown. And you're facing one of the worst defenses in football, and you're sitting with 7 points deep into this game. The most brutal moment from Danny Dimes was the first time that they're in the red zone and he throws that brutal interception under pressure, literally just throws the ball up to the heavens. I have no idea what he's doing. Early in this game, he also missed Wan'Dale Robinson wide open downfield on a crossing route that could have been potentially a touchdown, was at least going to be like a 30-something yard gain. It's just a really difficult position that he puts this offense in. And I'm not saying that everything is perfect around him, but I do like Tyrone Tracy. He wasn't super efficient running the ball today, but I thought that they were still able to rely on the run game to get them to these 4th and short situations, which is kind of what they were gunning for, right? You knew that they were playing like it was a 4-down situation for the second half of this football game in its entirety, basically. I thought they were able to get him involved in the passing game a lot. Like, I thought that Daboll honestly called a really nice game. I loved the aggression on 4th down, even when it's in your own territory, even the first time when they didn't get it and they basically put the Bengals in field goal range, except their defense came up with a clutch play. But that's what you have to do, right? Like, you cannot just stand pat and say, okay, we're going to keep trusting our defense. Your defense is awesome, but the Bengals are going to score again in this game. Like, you know that. That is objective fact. And you have to score at some point or another. You can't go through more than a half of football putting 0 points on the board and then remain super passive in those 4th and short situations. In my opinion, I thought for the most part, it paid off that they were aggressive there. And even at the end, when they don't get it, and I imagine that Daboll will get some criticism for the fact that they went for it on 4th and 3 instead of attempting a 54-yard field goal to tie the game, just because we know how this stuff works. It's very results based. People will look at the decision, and if it didn't pan out, that means it was the wrong decision. But that's not the case. And I think that that's all the more justified by the fact that Greg Joseph then went out there and missed another very makeable field goal. But the fact that he had already missed one was compelling enough to me. Again, that's still 4th and short. It's a high percentage conversion. And if you do make the field goal, which I would say was less likely than it was that Joseph was going to miss from that distance, then you're giving Joe Burrow 3 minutes, all his timeouts. All he has to do is get Evan McPherson, a great kicker, within field goal range. Like, playing for the touchdown, at least playing to convert another first down there and take more time off the clock and make it an easier field goal, I think is absolutely the right decision. Ultimately, I just think Danny Dimes missed a few plays in this game. I thought that he was effective with his legs, and I loved all the QB draws that they called. Like, I think that's the best way to use his skill set. His legs are clearly his greatest asset, but against a defense this bad, like, he needs to be able to make more plays. I don't think this is a bad receiving core, even down Malik Neighbors. It's not a good one, but I like Wan'Dale Robinson. I like Darius Slayton. Again, Tracy was very effective in the receiving game. It's just tough. He and that contract are the thing holding them back because, like you say, other than that, they're not far away. I mean, his defense is phenomenal, and the pass rush has consistently been dominant. They've struggled against the run coming into this game, but outside of the one Burrow scramble, like the one bad play that this defense had until, again, the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, when they still almost got you another chance at the win because Micah McFadden strips that ball, they just can't recover it. They were great against the run. They were stifling against the run. So I just think you got to give a ton of props to this defense, but there's a very clear reason that the Giants aren't at this point a team that we're going to be talking about in playoff conversations, but they're competitive, and the defense deserves credit for that. And I still believe in Dable. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he should be getting any flack for this one.
I do too, and I really hope he gets another opportunity post Daniel Jones, because it's such an albatross, like handcuffing him to Danny. And right, that's why they hired him initially, right? Dable did some very special stuff with Josh Allen when he was a young quarterback, and their hopes when signing him were that he would be able to turn around Daniel Jones. That's an impossible task. But the bright side is that if Dable can hang on past this, because I'm not surprised with how Daniel Jones played tonight. I'm never surprised when Daniel Jones doesn't meet expectations. That's just what I expect. But that's the beauty, is with Neighbors, with Tracy, with a budding offensive line and a good defense, if this is the offseason where they move off Daniel Jones, I'm very confident that if they can get a middle-of-the-road, solid game manager, that the Giants are going to be very competitive. I don't feel like they're far away. And I'm pro-aggression. I'm glad you brought up the play calling there from Dable, because
Yes.
I mean, when your offense isn't mustering points, like when you don't have faith in your kicker, like, I'm all for it. And especially, I don't know if you saw earlier in the day, it made me mad in a similar situation in the Titans game. Titans-Colts. Titans were trailing by 3 points with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in this game with the ball, and they ended up punting it. And that was the most confusing decision of the day in any of the football games to me, because they punted the ball away with 2 timeouts. They had lost a timeout earlier in the game because they had had an unsuccessful challenge. They lost a timeout. And so basically you're painting your defense into a corner where you have to get them off the field in 3 plays or you lose the game. I'd much rather do a do or die situation. And so I'm normally a conservative guy, but with your kicking situation like this, with the offense not kicking into gear, I'm very okay with Dable and his decision making here, especially when you got to strike, man. Like, yeah. This was a very winnable game. Not super electric, and on the inverse of this, I think you do see the flaws of the Bengals as a real deal contender. Like, oh my God, dude, you put up 17 points on the Giants, 10 most of the way. This is a good win for them. Like, they handle business, and I didn't think Joe Burrow looked bad. I think the Bengals are the same team that we've been saying they are all year, Carson. You know, they're relying on Higgins, they're relying on Jamar Chase, they're relying on Joe Burrow. Everything else is kind of a question mark. Credit to the defense. They played better tonight. I'm not going to give them too many flowers because it's the Giants offense, but they did play a good game today.
They were fine. I mean, this defense is horrible. We know that. That's just another damning fact for the Giants offense, but Dable really is the only reason that they put up points in this game, right? Him and Tracy. I thought there were some skill position players who played well, but if he's not aggressive on their one touchdown drive, like, if you just accept, okay, the offense stalled out again, you never scored points in this game. He had to be aggressive there and go for it and keep that drive alive. and you got into scoring range 5 times in this game, Logan. You missed 2 field goals. You have 1 failed 4th and 3, and then Danny Dimes throws the horrible interception. Like, this absolutely should have been the Giants' win. The Giants, frankly, managed to outplay the Bengals in this game, and the Bengals offense got nothing except for 2 explosive plays, except for the Burrow scramble, which was just electric, and then the Chase Brown borderline garbage time run, just because Cincinnati would have been able to eat up clock and end that game anyways. Shout out, by the way, real quick to Max in the chat. Appreciate your donation. Sorry that you stayed up across the pond for that game. Not a thriller. Not a thriller. But yeah, this doesn't move the needle for the Bengals at all, in my opinion. Shout out Joe Shiesty for the scramble. That was electric. Obviously, he's an elite quarterback. He's not the problem here. This team just isn't that good, and the defense isn't good. And the fact that they were able to hold the Giants to 7 points really means nothing. Let's move on to the game of the day, Logan, which involved another NFC East team, that being the Washington Commanders, who have, of course, been the darlings of the division this year. They take on the Baltimore Ravens in a little DMV battle. They do fall short, but it is a close game. What'd you take away from this one?
So I do have some good things to say about the Commanders. I thought this was an impressive loss for them, but I'll start with the Ravens. And I just continue to be blown away by the most talented backfield in NFL history. I continue to say this, man. Lamar and Derrick Henry are just that. And I wrote down more specific ones. Carson, would you take like Peyton and Edgerrin, Curtin, Marshall Faulk, Terry and Franco, Elway and TD?
Okay, Terry and Franco, all due respect, not up there. Terry's just not up there.
I was about to say, don't disrespect. Franco's a legend. And
yeah,
I don't know if you can say that about Terry, Carson, just because Terry is, I mean, regular
versus
season
Lamar
accolades.
and Derrick Henry, Logan. I'm not saying that they aren't a great backfield. Hey,
all I'm going to say is Terry Bradshaw played 2 of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. I'm going to let you finish.
He doesn't hold a candle to Lamar Jackson.
It's going to be real funny when Logan's by the Ravens. I'm not scared of Lamar. We're going to kick Lamar's ass. We do it every time.
Here we go.
It's going to be real funny when Logan Steelers get. That's funny, man. That is real
Then we're
funny.
putting you in the gimp suit.
I'll do
no,
it live.
I think that this is the best. I mean, the best competition to me is Peyton and Edgerrin, as you said, and Falk and Warner. I mean, they won so 3 straight MVPs between the 2 of them. Like, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely insane. And that was arguably the greatest offense of all time. But it's different, right? Because, like, when you think about the connectedness of these 2 and their skill sets and just creating for what legitimately could be the most dominant rushing attack we've ever seen. Like, I think that's how we could be talking about the Ravens later this year. Like, there's just a symbiosis there that we've never seen anything like. You've never seen a rushing threat like Derrick Henry at the running back spot with a rushing threat like Lamar Jackson at quarterback, because there are very few dudes who can hold a candle to either one of them throughout NFL history, and they're playing together. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And this is my expectation for them coming into the season. You know, a lot of people said Derrick Henry's washed. He doesn't have much left to give. A lot of people were critical of Lamar Jackson and his growth as a passer. And I thought, one, Derrick Henry was running behind a really beat up offensive line. And that was a big part of the reason why over the past couple of years, Derrick had sustained injuries. I thought that Lamar showed us legitimate growth as a passer last year, the most improvement we had ever seen in an individual season. And a lot of people let the last playoff game against Kansas City kind of wipe away all of that progression that we saw from Lamar. In this isn't the most impressive game that we see it in because it's against a bad defense like the Commanders, but they tore them up. I mean, Lamar and Zay were dotting. Lamar was dotting Zay up all in the first half. They were eating, and there's just so much skill position talent here. Again, it's the best that Lamar has ever had. Henry in the backfield. Zay Flowers is a playmaker. Rashad Bateman has some big plays in this game. Isaiah Likely is a weapon, man. He's one of the best tight ends in football. And Mark Andrews gets going in this game. Basically, I am just so confident. It's the most confident I've ever been in this team. And they're less likely to stall out late in games. That's been the Achilles heel of this team. We see it in the Raiders game earlier this year. It's Lamar's improvement as a passer, and it's Derrick Henry's consistency on the ground. You say it's symbiotic, Carson. I mean, they feed off of each other so well, man. Yeah. Derrick Henry takes such a burden off of Lamar's shoulders. Lamar takes such a burden off of Derrick Henry's shoulders. These are guys that singularly made offenses great before they teamed up together. Derrick Henry, every single year, made the Titans offense one of the best in the NFL because of how dominant he was as a rusher and how great the play action could be off of that. Lamar single-handedly made the Ravens the best rushing attack in the NFL every single season. And when you pair these guys up together, it really is something special. I thought they could be the best offense in the NFL. And now that we've seen them for a couple of weeks together, really together and have figured it out, I think that they're up there for it. And I probably would say that this is the best offense in the NFL. The defensive front is still monstrous. And I was impressed by the Commanders today. We'll get to that in a second, but there's a reason the Ravens have been number 2 in my power rankings. I think they're up there for the best offense in the NFL. And I still like this defensive front. I like the defensive front more than I like the secondary. The secondary has been a little underwhelming. I think the linebacker depth has been a little underwhelming, but I'm still impressed with this team. And again, if they can just sustain drives like this, they do get bailed out a little bit in the third quarter. I'll say a defensive pass interference on the Commanders extended a drive. It led to a touchdown late in this game. So they do get let off the hook a little bit, but their ability to play ball control football, man, sustain drives and finish them in points. I've always said this about the Ravens, but it's like a snake, the way they will get up on you early and they will just squeeze the life out of their opponent. It's one of the best recipes in football, man. And I'm so confident. I'm more confident. And I know that was a really talented defense with a special defensive coordinator, but I'm more confident in the Ravens as legitimate contenders this year. Again, I picked this team to the Super Bowl preseason. I'm more confident in them as contenders now because of the upgrade that they made offensively and going out and getting Derrick Henry. And I continue to feel that way, man, especially after this game.
They're definitely a better offense than last year. And you talk about their case as the best offense in football. They have a strong one. But what is undeniable, in my opinion, is that they are the offense that when you are facing them and they are playing football how they want to, right? If they can get in the driver's seat of a game and really just remain a super run-heavy attack, they make you feel the most helpless. Like, shout out to the Lions, right? They can dominate at the line of scrimmage. They can dominate with the run game, but the dual threat that you get from Lamar with Derrick Henry, I mean, every option is just a nightmare to defend because you have one of the hardest dudes to tackle in space in Lamar, and then you have one of the hardest dudes to bring down, period, in Derrick Henry. These dudes are putting up video game numbers together, man. It's unbelievable. And although the run game is undoubtedly the foundation of all of this and the reason that we talk about this as maybe the best offense in football, what Lamar's doing as a passer right now is unbelievable. And that's just what continues to stand out to me. Granted, the last 2 weeks, he has faced 2 bad defenses and 2 bad secondaries with Cincinnati and Washington, but he is dotting these teams up. He is just letting it rip over the middle of the field, hitting these crossing routes. I mean, you mentioned Zay Flowers. I believe he found 9 times in the first half for 132 yards. When he's throwing the football like this, he's been an elite passer. Like, you look at just all the passing stats, 6th in passing yards, 5th in passing touchdowns, 3rd in passing yards per attempt. You look at the throws that he is making. I mean, just the raw arm talent, the velocity on some of these tight window throws. He rips that touchdown pass to Mark Andrews in this game, putting the ball where only his receiver can get it. It's unbelievable when you pair that with the fact that he's the greatest rushing threat that we've ever seen at the quarterback position. And that means that he's been the best quarterback in football this year. And there's really no question about it because the gravity is absurd, right? Every option with Henry, every sweep to a receiver, you're worried about him keeping it. It's just impossible to guard for defenses. So he has been throwing to a lot of open receivers these past couple weeks against these defenses. But part of that is the stress that he places on them. Part of that is how he's been using his eyes to deceive the defense, right? He's been so methodical working through his progressions. He's basically playing the position perfectly right now. And specifically, where this offense makes you feel most helpless, I think, is on 3rd down because of Lamar's rushing ability in those situations. And that just beat Washington over and over again in this game. They go 6 of 10 on 3rd down today. They're over 50% on 3rd downs this season. Unbelievable. They flashed it on the broadcast. They've been the best 3rd and short offense. I want to say like 85% on 3rd downs between 1 and 3 yards. There's just no offense that's harder to get off the field when you need to get the ball back. And when you're trying to climb back into a game, like, they're just going to grind you down and they're just going to destroy you. And I think that Washington, who is a bad defense, let's just be honest, but they were very, very much the victims of that experience today. There's no question this is a bona fide contender. I was worried about the offensive line through 2 weeks. I mean, I still thought they were clearly a top 3 team in the AFC, but they just feel unstoppable offensively. And I do think the defense is going to continue to play better. And I thought that they played well today. I thought that they got pressure. I thought they were better in coverage. And I thought they did a pretty good job against the Washington offense that's basically lit up everybody else in front of them. They mostly held them in check. They produced, but they didn't explode.
Yeah, they didn't. And the last aspect I want to mention on the Ravens offense too that I think is different from years previous. You talk about, the stress that Lamar puts on a defense too. When he's able to extend plays, this is something that Baltimore hadn't been hitting on in years previous. Like you see it in this game a lot too. When Lamar has time and can get out of the pocket and create, he's hitting on these shot plays at a much higher rate than he's ever had in years previous on these, where you have 3 or 4 seconds in the backfield when there's a coverage breakdown because there's just not enough time to cover the receivers on the back end. Lamar's connecting in a different way over the middle to guys. You just talk about guys being wide open. That's because he's got time back there.
Mm-hmm.
He finds time. And with any quarterback, if you give them 4 to 5 seconds, your defensive backs just can't hold up that long. Lamar is making teams pay in a different way for letting those breakdowns happen and not getting pressure on the QB. It's just the most dangerous this Ravens offense has ever been in the Lamar Jackson era. And for a guy that is already the greatest rushing threat of all time, that is already a 2-time MVP, that has added Derrick Henry, that now has the greatest skill position talent around him, it's that much more hard, more difficult to stop the Ravens. And again, the greatest rushing threat ever, finally putting it all together, passing. That's arguably the best quarterback in football. Again, I'm still taking 2 guys over him, but
Agreed.
Lamar is closing that passing gap, and I've been impressed with that aspect of his game. But I want to give a ton of credit to Jayden Daniels for the performance he put up in this game too. This game was different. One, because he's going up against the Baltimore defense, and they are so well coached. They are so well disciplined. Like, I don't care who the defensive coordinator is, and for what it's worth, I think Zach Orr has done a phenomenal job this year of coaching this team up in Mike Macdonald's absence. He's obviously not as great as Mike Macdonald was. He's one of the most brilliant defensive minds we have in football today, but he's done a good job. And this game was unique for Washington because Brian Robinson Jr. was out from the jump, and Brian Robinson Jr. has been one of the best running backs in the NFL this year. Just production-wise, the stress that him and Jayden put on defenses with option plays too. The Commanders had 0 running game in this one, Carson, and that's what made this performance so impressive to me about Jayden. This team altogether has 18 carries for 52 yards. The running backs put up 11 carries for 30 yards. And Jayden really can't scramble at all. The Ravens defense did a great job of bottling him up in the pocket, but he made them pay. And that's where I was so impressed, is just from the pocket, delivering balls on time, on target, dissecting the defense. The offense didn't leave me maybe you're a little underwhelmed because they put up 23 points, but I mean, they didn't get to touch the ball as much because the Ravens just dominated so much offensively. They had the rock for so much of this game. I was impressed with limited production elsewhere from this offense, with no running game, with not being able to scramble out of the pocket and create with your legs in the way that Jayden's been able to traditionally. He was really effective from the pocket today. And again, against a defense that, has a pedigree about them, that has a reputation for being one of the best in the league. I was really impressed. The raw numbers may not blow you away, but he was efficient. He made good decisions. He extended plays, and he didn't make any major mistakes. Jayden blows me away every single game, man. And the Commanders, I don't know if they're ever I know you put them in your power rankings this week, Carson, and I thought that was bold. I don't know if the Commanders are ever going to be able to climb in the top 10 for the power rankings for me this year.
Really?
But they're always going to be in the top half of the league. Stylistically, I prefer, I think, a team with that archetype over the defensive-minded teams. I don't know if there would be anything that could happen that would make me put the Steelers over the Commanders or put the Jets over the Commanders. And let me be clear about what I mean by this. In an individual setting, I may take the Steelers or I may take the Jets to beat a team like that. But against real contenders, I'm probably going to lean more on the team that I believe that can put up points in bunches like Washington. That's just a distinct advantage that Washington's offense is going to have, I think, in every game they play. They're one of the best offenses in the league. I trust them to put up points basically against everybody. Jayden continues to amaze me, man. I thought this was a really good performance, even though they lose this game.
I agree. And I think the biggest thing is what you mentioned, down Brian Robinson in this game and against a dominant Baltimore run defense. I mean, they flashed a stat during the broadcast. Their run yardage differential, like their offense compared to what they're allowing, they're like plus 150 rushing yards per game. It's just ridiculous. I think it's the greatest differential in NFL history. And Eckler is just not a guy who is going to be able to carry you on the ground, right? He's still a really good receiving back, but he's been a really bad runner of the football for quite some time now. And a huge part of Washington's identity has been just getting out in front of every single series, right? We run or we throw a quick hitting screen on first down and we get it to second and manageable or second and short. And then we take a shot or we're looking at third and short, and they've been the best third down offense. And they just weren't getting into those scenarios. And so you are looking at more third and longs, and you're getting behind the sticks more than they have all year when they've just consistently been in front of the sticks more than anybody else. And they weren't great on third down. And like, again, they didn't dominate offensively, but Jayden did enough. Jayden made plays and he still put up 23 points in this game. He's phenomenal. I don't know if there's a debate, Logan. Well, there is a debate, but I think he's a top 10 quarterback in football right now. Like, he is just an offensive engine in the truest sense of the word. Like, not to compare him to Lamar, but that dual threat dimension just stresses defenses in a different way. And then he's ridiculously accurate. He's been up there for the best deep ball thrower in football. And he's churning out an offense that puts up 30 points per game without overwhelming talent alongside him. He's not as young as your average rookie. So, like, I don't know that we need to overreact in terms of like where that means he stands among like the top franchise building blocks, right? He's still almost a year older than CJ Stroud because he was in college for so long, but he's having a special rookie season. What do you think about that? Like, do you think he's top 10 right now?
Not yet. I mean, it's not a ridiculous take. I mean, I'd have Jayden probably 11 to 14 right now. And
can I throw out some names?
Yeah, sure.
Do you like Jordan Love more than him?
Yeah, I would take Jordan Love over Jayden. Dude, Jordan Love just has such a good ability to hit on shot plays. Like,
so does Jayden now.
I mean, like, that's the thing to me is there's still a level of comfortability I have with the veteran quarterbacks in the league over Jayden. There's just a different level of like faith because of their experience that I have in them. Jayden's very close. I'm not going to act like he's not. And I think like long term, I think it's a real debate. He's closing in fast. I would probably
Can I
still
throw out
take
a couple
Jordan
other
Love.
names?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, what about Kyler?
Kyler and him are really close. And I don't want to overstate it, but like the size difference actually does make a meaningful difference between him and Kyler. Like Kyler does sometimes have to run and scramble to create angles for throwing lanes that Jayden can just see over. I think that Jayden's better as a scrambler. Like he's agile, he's quick. I think he's just as fast as Kyler, but I think he's tougher to bring down because he's bigger. Him and Kyler are neck and neck. I'd probably take Jayden, and that's a tough one because I like Kyler a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about other dudes who are in the top 10 range. I mean, I think
Dak's
clearly
close.
Rodgers is out of these conversations now.
I think I would take Jayden over Rodgers. I think with how bad Dak has been, you can make the case. Like,
what about Geno? I think I take Jayden over Geno, man. It's just so efficient. When you have a dude who is this good at both throwing and running the football, it's unbelievable.
More importantly, limiting mistakes. Like these are veterans making crucial mistakes. Jayden barely puts the ball in harm's way.
And Geno's situation is harder, right? Because his line sucks, but also Jayden can overcome to some extent a line that isn't great because he's able to threaten you in both ways at all times. And the play calling's been great from Cliff Kingsbury. And by the way, I don't want to undersell how awesome Terry McLaurin is, because lackluster quarterback play for years has kept him out of some of these conversations just in terms of production. Dude is a monster. He is such a complete receiver. He's good for a shot play every game, right? He's going to beat the defense deep. Jayden's going to find him too. But the second touchdown catch, I mean, unbelievable. The ball tracking, the body control. He's a great route runner. Like, he's a monster. But outside of that, again, it's not a loaded group. And here they are. I mean, they just produce offensively every single week.
Yeah, and like I mentioned this a bunch in my video on Jayden, but the ability to turn those negative plays into positive, it's the biggest swing. Like when you're looking at EPA, like per play, like the difference between taking a sack and, you know, a 2 to 5 yard gain on a play is like the biggest swing play in football. And Jayden is so good. He's just we've rarely seen a quarterback this efficient as a rookie. Like when we're looking at the annals of NFL history, the most efficient rookie quarterbacks, CJ Stroud is the benchmark. 5 interceptions to 23 touchdowns. I mean, Jayden is playing above that right now. He is literally playing as the greatest rookie quarterback of all
Yeah.
time. And I wanted to pump the brakes last year. I was the guy sitting there the entire season going, hold the phone, folks. Let's wait. Let's wait on it. It's rookies aren't supposed to play this well. And then CJ blew everybody away. And then this year, Jayden is playing even better than he was. And I really liked how comfortable. I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit too. I liked how comfortable Caleb Williams looked today too, man. Like he looked like he's growing into his own, but it's not ridiculous. As it stands, Jayden, I think, is having the best rookie quarterback campaign ever. And I don't think it's a ridiculous take. Would you take him as top 10? And where do you fall on those guys you threw out? Like Love, like Murray,
Yeah,
like
very
are you
close.
are you ready to make that leap to put him in the top 10?
So here are the dudes who are concretely above him. Let's run them down. Mahomes, obviously, Josh, Lamar, Burrow, Herbert, Stroud, Stafford. That gets you to 7. Then basically everybody else, I think that there's a debate. I would probably still take Dak just because of body of work, but Dak obviously hasn't been as good this year. If you want to take Jayden, I'd be fine with that. Then honestly, I think I might prefer him at this moment to both
Did you
Love
say
and
Herbert?
Kyler. I did say Herbert. There's just such an efficiency with him, man. There is the duality of creating at a really high level and not making
And you
mistakes.
said Stroud too.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I mean,
He's right there. Whether you think he's in or out,
he
he's
is.
got
He is right
12.
there for sure.
Yeah. I think that I probably would have him in that top 10. I think I would take him slightly over Kyler. And I love Kyler. I'm a big fan of Kyler, but I think that in a similar archetype, I mean, Kyler still has more creation. I think he's more audacious with the football, and I think he is a better arm talent. But I do think it's a little easier with Jayden, and he does have the size advantage, and he does have the touch and the accuracy. And I do think he's a slightly more elite rushing threat, although they're both phenomenal there. It makes life really easy on an offense, man.
Real quick, do you think Rodgers at this point? Because I don't think we're going to get into the Jets at all.
Well,
Do
we'll
you
talk
think
this tomorrow.
Rodgers is closer to like Dak right now or Kirk?
Kirk.
I think so
Definitely
too.
Kirk.
I think so
100%
too.
Kirk. He's right there with Kirk.
I think he's right next to him. Yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
kind of scary to me when I'm like reevaluating like what I think of Rodgers at this point in his career. I definitely think he's closer to Kirk, man.
100%. I mean, let's be real. Kirk's playing ballsier
Kirk's
football.
balling.
Standing
Kirk's
in there making
balling,
throws
bro.
that Aaron isn't making right now. So obviously, if you're a Commanders fan, you're thrilled about what you're seeing from Jayden. And I think you're still content with this loss because you didn't get exposed, right? You played a good competitive football game. But this is why Washington isn't a real contender. Even though I'm a bit higher on them than you, I had them at number 9 in my power rankings, as you mentioned, because this offense is so elite. And this offense held up pretty well against a good defense. But they're a bottom 5 defense in their own right. Like they're bottom 5 in yards and points per drive. And you have some breakdowns on the back end of this game. You can't stop the run. Like you just know that when it comes down to it, if you're facing an equally good offense, your defense isn't going to be able to get off the field. I do think they've continued to cement that they're a legit playoff caliber team, and their offense continues to translate. It's just this defense is really bad. Like it's really bad to the point where somebody's going to get them in a shootout because they're just not going to be able to get stops.
And I'll cut him some slack too. I mean, Siebert misses a 52-yard field goal in this game early. He has another extra point that's blocked that could have made this one a little closer down the stretch. But I don't think
they were also down 2 scores for a decent portion of it, though. Like they get in it at the end, but Baltimore controlled this game.
I don't think this defense is that far away, though. I literally just think it's the secondary. If they can figure out the corners and the Frankie Louvu, I think is a stud in the middle of the field. I like Daron Payne. I like Jonathan Allen. Like maybe that's not the best way to phrase it. They are probably a little bit far away, but they're not completely talentless. Like there are guys that I think are building blocks on this defense. Like that's how I look at Louvu. That's how I look at Allen and Payne up front. I think those guys are, foundational defensive pieces that you can build around. It's just this secondary to me. If they can figure out the secondary over this next offseason, because I think it's just too bad. I mean, we've just seen it. Too many tapes, them getting cooked. If they can figure that out, though, man, I think I'm going to look at them in a different light. But The offense is legit, man, and the offense is going to win them a lot of games against other bad offenses. Like, that's what I mean. Like, if they played the Jets or the Steelers or a team like that, like, I could definitely see them whooping that ass. Like, they can score points in a way that just bad offenses, like, and again, I'm looking at that archetype specifically. Good defenses with bad offenses, that Saints, Steelers, Jets, Broncos tier. I'm just going to favor a team with an elite offense like that over teams because I trust them in a different way. They can get points on anybody. It's remarkable, Carson. I couldn't believe the stuff that I was saying about CJ Stroud last year. I cannot believe the stuff I'm saying about Jayden Daniels in his rookie year.
Dude's a baller. I don't know if we can put the Saints in that good defense tier anymore after today. Maroon, what a beatdown. Let's talk about NFC's team number 3, though, Logan, because they were all involved in the games of the day in their own ways. The Dallas Cowboys, Logan, just got absolutely obliterated by the Detroit Lions. 47-9. More competitive than the scoreboard, some would argue. Who do you think this game said more about, Logan? Did it tell you more about Detroit or more about Dallas?
People who had Dallas in their power rankings may argue that.
Just at number 10. Just at number 10, and I regret it, and it was a terrible mistake, and I'll own up to that.
Carson, it just kills me, man. I don't want to dog you too much, man. But
no, please, go ahead.
Dude, it's like you are taking your stick and you are poking it at the football gods, and you're like, all right.
I'm not going to do it again.
You're like, all right, I'm going to take the boys to the Super Bowl. And then they strike you with lightning, and they're like, no, actually, they're not. And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to put them back in the power rankings. And then the Cowboys just gave you the double bird. Like,
yeah. Look, man, I bought low on the stock. I'm now selling it at an even lower price. I can't do it. I can't be in any way invested or affiliated with the Dallas Cowboys. Doesn't get worse than today. My God,
it's just classic Cowboys. And for your sake, man, I do think you should stay very far away from that stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm clear.
I do think this said more about the Cowboys. And first, I just want to say on the Lions point, I hope Aiden Hutchinson is okay. That was a gruesome lower leg injury. That's one of the worst I've seen. Yeah. Like, if you think about Nick Chubb and how he broke his leg last year against Minkah Fitzpatrick, that reminded me a lot. Like, that was haunting watching Hutchinson's leg dangle like that. So he's going to be out for the year, and this is a devastating blow to a defense that was steadily improving this year. The secondary hasn't been great, but I thought they were improving week after week. I thought the defensive front was one of the best in the league. Like, this is a crushing blow. He's leading, in my opinion, the defensive player of the year race. He led the NFL in sacks this season. He led the NFL in pressures last year. And I'll go ahead and I'll say it as a person who took the Lions to make the Super Bowl and win it in the preseason. This was my pick out of the NFC. This ends the Lions Super Bowl chances without him. Like, if Aiden Hutchinson is out, I'm sorry. They just don't have the biggest. He is the biggest defensive difference maker on this team. You could argue that he is this team's best player. I would probably lean on Penei Sewell just because Sewell is such a monster at left tackle, but Hutchinson's right there with him. And that was the idea when they drafted them. I think it is genius draft strategy. I gave the Lions props years ago when they were in the, dredges of the league trying to climb out. I said, you build from the trenches out and you will build yourself a great football team. And they did just exactly that. They've got two of the best foundational building blocks in the league in Hutchinson and Sewell. So I pray and hope that Aiden Hutchinson is okay and can make a healthy return. But I'm not a doctor. I'll say that off top. I don't think he's going to be back this year, and I can say that pretty safely.
He had emergency surgery
for
a leg fracture, so you're not coming back from a broken leg in all likelihood.
I just hope that, and it sucks because I'm pretty sure he slammed into Aleem McNeil, his own teammate. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how he went out. So I just hope that next year when we see Hutchinson return that he looks better. And, like, don't get me wrong, this is still a talented defense. Anzalone's a baller. I like Kirby Joseph. Brian Branch has been impressive. Aleem McNeil is great. They add, DJ Reader in the offseason. So they're still talented, but Hutchinson's one of the best defensive players in the game. There's just no replacing a guy like that. But I do think this said more. Yeah.
Real quick, let's stick with this Detroit thing. So you actually think that their Super Bowl chances are dead with the Aiden Hutchinson injury?
It's like the Steelers losing TJ Watt to me, man. It's like, the Browns losing Myles Garrett. Like, when we're looking at, and again, these defenses are more talented. The Browns and Steelers are outliers because they have some of the best defenses around their stars too. But that's my point, right? Even the Browns and the Steelers would probably be a little bit more well-equipped to deal with those injuries. The Lions just aren't as overwhelmingly talented around him. I just think that we're going to see them struggle to get pressure more. It'll lead to more cracks in the back end. He's just that transformative of a defensive player. And don't get me wrong, like the Lions, I think, can go toe-to-toe with any team in the NFL because this offense can put up points. But when the margins close like this and you lose this transformative a defensive player, I would say that it takes them down a notch for me. Does it for you?
It definitely hurts their chances. I don't know if I would close the window, though, just because I don't see a juggernaut in the NFC necessarily. Vikings fans, don't get mad at me because I have you as my NFC favorite. I had you as my NFC favorite before the injury. I think that defense is elite. I think the offense is good, but I still think that there are some question marks with the offense and specifically Sam Darnold to where I wouldn't call them like, again, an unbeatable juggernaut. And I think that the Lions offense makes a strong case as the best in football. I think that their formula is extraordinarily replicable. I think the emergence of Jameson Williams has only made them more explosive, more dynamic. They're the best team offensively in the trenches in football. And they're still a pretty damn good defensive front, dude. I mean, Aleem McNeil was fantastic in this game. Reader is damn good. Of course, this matters because this is a defense that is dependent on its front, both against the run and in generating a consistent high-level pass rush. The secondary does have more questions. I thought they were good in coverage today, but overall, I don't think that the secondary has been very good this season. I just can't write them off because of this. And honestly, they're still on my short list in the NFC. Like, this makes me more confident in the Vikings as the favorite in the conference. But it's not like I can't see a world in which that's the NFC title game. Detroit just puts up 35 points. Sam Darnold throws a pick. Like, they're still very much in the mix. But yes, this obviously hurts them because, like you say, he's clearly their best defensive player. He was the defensive player of the year up to this point in the season. You don't replace that. And when your defense needs a superstar like that because of question marks elsewhere, like, they're going to be a mediocre defense, but they're an elite offense. And I think they still have a chance because of that.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. I think that they definitely have a chance. I just think you lose some disruption. And when you lose a disruption like that, it's just such a big blow. I will say, since I've had time to reflect after our power ranking show and I watched the full tape of the Jets-Vikings game and actually got to watch, really in depth how disruptive the Vikings defense is, that is an edge I would distinctively give Minnesota over every team in the NFL. And I wanted to do this. Maybe we'll do this thought exercise later at the end of the show. I'd love to do like a top 5 defenses in the NFL. I think that's an intriguing conversation. The Vikings are 2 to me right now. I would take Kansas City 1 just because they've been so rock solid and they're so well coached. But Vikings and Kansas City are 1 and 2 for me in terms of just one, like scheme and game plan wise, how well coached these teams are, especially the Brian Flores defense. Everybody knows what they're doing at the line of scrimmage. And not only do they all know what they're doing, they're deliberately picking against a weakness of the offense, like the disguise blitzes, the Vikings overloading the line of scrimmage with 6 or 7 guys. And then, because this was all over tape, them dropping a random guy into coverage and blitzing another guy that just gets unblocked. Harrison Smith had some. And then the personnel, like the Vikings are loaded defensively. The Vikings defense is real to me. I still have questions about the offense, and that's why maybe I'm a little hesitant to raise them, like you said, about Darnold and my concerns with him. But the defense is 100% legit. It's one of the top 5 in football. We got a little bit off track on this question, but
no, let's go to the Cowboys funeral. If you're ready, go ahead.
I mean, one, the defense is still flawed, and I'll cut them a little bit of slack. They've missed Micah Parsons. He's out this game too. He's a massive, massive difference maker.
Well, also, let's run down the whole list because they are super. I'm not making any excuses for the Cowboys, but I'm saying their defense isn't out there right now. You have no DeMarcus Lawrence, you have no Eric Kendricks, you have no Deron Bland, and no Parsons. That's 4 of your 5 best defensive players right there.
Well, Eric Kendricks sucks now, but sure.
And he's been fine this year.
He's old. He's washed.
How dare you?
One of the biggest issues with Dallas has been the big shot plays, and that's going to be the thing that they have to clean up most to me on tape. This was an issue with Dan Quinn. It has still been an issue with Mike Zimmer. Like, they've got to cut it. And one of the things that sticks out to me about Dallas through the opening parts of this season against New Orleans and against Detroit specifically, Rashid Shaheed on shot plays, Jamison Williams on shot plays. This defense doesn't have the speed on the back end to keep up with some of these players. And that to me is a problem. In the middle of the field with an aging linebacker like Kendricks or the depth guys that you have, they just don't have enough athletes. Like, they've got dogs, don't get me wrong. Parsons, when he's out there, Overshown, when he is healthy, is one hell of an athlete for his position, but they don't have the kind of weapon like Shaheed or Williams when they get burnt that can erase those kind of plays or just keep speed with some of these guys. So that to me is a big issue. And then just their secondary, man. And I know the Lions are a great offense. Ben Johnson schemes up beautiful stuff every single game. They're creative. They attack your weak points. They draw up creative stuff every week. But these are two beatdowns by two of the league's best offensive coordinators. Clint Kubiak spanked them. Ben Johnson spanked them. So the defense is still very, very problematic to me. And I've been concerned about the offense recently. Dak Prescott, this is extended bad play from him. 7 turnovers this year. 6 picks, a fumble lost. He is tied second this year in most turnovers by a quarterback, tied with Jalen Hurts, just behind Will Levis. And they still can't run the ball. They're number 32 in yards per carry. And so this is what I harped on in the offseason. This is what I said that would limit Dallas from being a real contender. Now, I'll be honest. I'll put my hand up. Nick Collison, even I did not predict that Dallas was going to be this bad. I thought that Dallas was going to win their division, and I thought they were going to lose in the first round, right? I thought it was going to be a typical Dallas runs the regular season, dominates, has some big wins against real contenders, beats up on bad teams, and then, just falls completely short in the first round of the playoffs. Even I couldn't have predicted it has been as bad as Dallas has been, but it's just concerning to me, Carson, that it's been bad in areas that we didn't allocate for, right? We had questions about the run defense. We were optimistic that shot plays were going to get hemmed up. That hasn't fixed itself. We knew the running game was going to be bad, but we didn't think Dak was going to be this bad. It's just sure things about this Dallas team haven't been sure. And that's where I'm just worried, man. Like, there's nothing solid about this team, man. And they're fumbling, man. They're fumbling through this season.
Oh, yeah. No, listen, several of the biggest regrets in my life involve the Dallas Cowboys this season. I think that picking them to go to the Super Bowl, which, to be fair, I didn't think they were the best team in the NFC. I thought the Lions and Niners were better, but my take was, you know what? Let's get ballsy with it. I think that they have the upside. Everybody's low on the Cowboys, and everybody was low on them for a reason, because they suck. Like, we can talk about all the defensive injuries. Yeah, that's real, but that's no excuse for getting destroyed like this. Like, everything is broken with this defense right now. They couldn't stop the run at all. It felt like they couldn't decide what they wanted to commit to stopping in this game at various points, and they ended up just getting killed by all of it, right? They were hesitant against the run, and so dudes were able to get comfortable yards upfield without getting touched, and they were still getting beaten by these shot plays. Every run up the middle worked. Every outside run worked. Every reverse and trickeration play worked. Every shot play hit. Like, literally everything worked for the Lions offense. There was no resistance whatsoever. And yes, their talent isn't on the field defensively, but I don't think that they have fight. Like, I don't think that they have a competitive will. Mike Zimmer, I clearly overestimated, thinking that he could improve this run defense, that he could, again, as you mentioned, limit some of those shot plays more effectively. Clearly, he has done nothing to fix things with this defense. Every time they faced a good offense, they have just gotten completely destroyed. And a good coach and a good culture can overcome that more than this, right? Like, more than a 47 piece, more than a 44 piece to the Saints, more than the 28-3 lead that they let up to the Baltimore Ravens. It's just horrible. And then offensively, they can't run the ball at all. Last week was decent. They were getting Dowdle the ball more. That made me optimistic they could be just a below average rushing attack, but not like one of the worst in football. But they were back to really the worst of things with the run game this week, and it's been bad all season. And that just makes them so one-dimensional on offense. And then you're down Brandon Cooks, which makes you even more singularly reliant on the Dak CD connection. And Dak has been disappointing this year. As you mentioned, the reason that I do want to cut him a little slack is his job is really hard. When you have a defense that is hemorrhaging points and immediately digging you deficits, and you can't run the ball whatsoever, and you're down your second best receiver, like, that's a tough spot to be in. But it doesn't excuse some of these mistakes. Early in this game, Dallas is moving the football, and he throws a pick in the end zone, a bad pick. You cannot do that. You mentioned the 6 interceptions this season. It does feel like he's pressing, and maybe part of that is the pressure of, I feel like I have to win us this game on my own. But like, you have to be able to balance that pressure and make plays, but not end up being too aggressive or being careless with the football, which I feel like he has been at times. And I mentioned that they're digging these deep holes, and that is mostly on the defense, but it's also on the offense. Like, the offense needs to get going quicker if they want to be in this game, because everything just becomes exacerbated. And it's just this like dual meltdown on both sides of the ball that gets worse and worse and compounds itself. It's just like a black hole, man.
Quicksand, man.
Quicksand. They're just eating themselves alive. I do think he's basically the least of their worries. Like, I imagine a lot of this will be about Dak. I really don't think it's about Dak, right? He could have played a damn good football game and they still would have gotten crushed today. Like, he needs to be better. But even if he were better, this team would be getting trampled because of what's happening defensively and with the run game right now. So yeah, obviously I should not have put the Cowboys at number 10 in my power rankings this past week. They're not good at all. And I think that you are now at like a legitimate turning point organizationally where you have to make some big decisions. I would fire Mike McCarthy, and I would go from there, because this team is flawed personnel-wise, right? They've lost some elite players, but they're still talented, right? They should not suck like this. Even with their injuries, they should not suck like this. Anytime a team gets obliterated like this multiple times, I think that's a reflection on coaching. I think that's a lack of preparedness. I think that's a lack of heart. I've never liked Mike McCarthy. I thought that they would have been perfectly justified in firing him after last season. I think you have to now, because I don't think it makes sense for this team to be like, all right, let's trade our best players. Like, first of all, in football, that's just generally not as good of an approach, right? Rebuilds don't work like that. And I don't think they're that far away personnel-wise. I would be looking at the head of the snake right now, and I would just be done with Mike McCarthy.
I completely agree with you. That's whose feet it falls on. Like, other teams don't have these excuses when they are this beat up defensively, right? I think about 2 defensive-minded coaches, our teams, Carson. Sean McDermott and the Bills have dealt with how many injuries over the past couple of years, and this defense is always buttoned up. They are at least well coached. The Steelers' defense, it falls apart when TJ Watt's out there, but they've dealt with a handful of injuries over the past couple of years. I want to give credit. I don't know how much we're going to talk about the Steelers game. Jeremiah Moon signed off the practice squad, was disruptive, getting pressure today. He blocked a punt that swung the game.
No relation to Jamario Moon, unfortunately.
No, he's got bounce, but no relation. When your defense is hurt, it's the coach's responsibility to get the guys that are filling into those shoes up to game speed and ready to play. And the Cowboys have consistently shown us that when push comes to shove, they're going to fall apart, like a house of cards. It's their reputation. And when you have built this it reminds me of like Philadelphia, man. When Philadelphia leaves us, oh my God, how could a team this talented fall apart? Maybe the coaching sucks. And that's a conclusion. And it sucks, Carson, because like Sean McDermott, it's like the Dallas Cowboys are a victim of their own success. Because Mike McCarthy has had Mike Tomlin, hell, man, all the coaches we're talking about. Tomlin, McCarthy, McDermott, they've been so successful consistently in the regular season that it has given them an excuse when it comes playoff time that they can kind of squirm their way out of. Oh, look at the results that I've produced. But when it matters, they really haven't. And I'm at my breaking point with McCarthy. I mean, I've always said this, and I'll go ahead and say it, man. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be good until Jerry Jones has nothing to do with this football team. Until Jerry Jones is gone, I think that that's an albatross that they can't cross. And unfortunately for the Cowboys, after Jerry's gone, his son is going to take over, and it's probably going to be just as bad or even worse because it's still going to be in the Jones family.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, you got to get rid of McCarthy, man. I'm just ready to hit the reset button. I'm ready to get some new vibes in there. And like you said, I don't think the Cowboys are that far away talent-wise. Like when we're looking at them full health, I think they need to reinvest in the offensive line. I think that's something that's bitten Dallas. They lost a couple of key offensive linemen to the Commanders. I think that is killing them. Those guys are balling out right now for them. So I think they need to reinvest in the offensive line. I think they need to get more speed in the middle of their defense, in their secondary. And I think they need to get an actual impactful defensive tackle. And obviously, they need to get another impactful running back. Like, they have positions to fill. But when you look at the key positions of this team, quarterback, well, I trust Dak. CeeDee Lamb, well, I trust CeeDee. He's a great playmaker.
Elite, top 3.
Yeah. Jake Ferguson, good tight end, right? Defense, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Deron Bland, Trevon Diggs. Like,
they have elite players. Top of the roster is still loaded with elite football players.
It's very important positions. And you can bitch and moan and you can complain, oh, we paid all those guys. We can't afford to fill out the rest of our roster. Well, you're paying top of the line market money to top of the line players. You're going to have to pay great players regardless. It just so happens that you have great players in your organization. So I don't think it's time to hit the dynamite button, like go full NBA rebuild. But I do think it's time to start a new culture, to get a new coach in there, and to rebuild. But they're not that far away, man. I think the Cowboys, with one good offseason, could be right back into contender status because the NFC is not that talented at the top. There's not a juggernaut to slay. But I do think McCarthy has reached the end of the rope. I think Zimmer has reached the end of his rope. It's time to restart the coaching staff, man.
Agreed. What's kind of crazy to me is you think about how much the Cowboys have won in the regular season, right? I mean, there's the stat about how long it's been since they've gone to an NFC title game, but they've been consistently one of the winningest regular season teams. I don't think they've had a good head coach in 15 years. Jason Garrett, I thought, was a bad head coach. He lasted a decade, and McCarthy's in year 5 now, and I think he sucks too. It's crazy. And that goes on Jerry too. Like, bro, you have to be able to identify when it's not working out with your head coach.
Yeah, their last great coach is Barry Switzer or Jimmy Johnson. I mean, Bill Parcells is in there for a little bit. Shout out. But that wasn't exactly.
Had some good teams, but
those weren't exactly successful experiments.
Yeah. Not in the measure of success that the Cowboys have, which is truly contending. And they haven't been there, and they're certainly not going to be there this year. I do want to give props to Detroit because I thought that they were amazing. I thought that it was a good defensive performance and just flawless offensively.
You could tell the Lions came out there with, after that loss last year,
oh my God,
because of the tackle eligible, they came out there with a purpose. This was a vengeance game for Detroit.
They have so much purpose. They have such a strong identity. And Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson both, I think, just instill such confidence in this team, bro. I mean, when they're running the hook and ladder to Panay, that's just a big old fuck you. We can do whatever we want, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I love it. I don't think it's unsportsmanlike. Fuck it. The Cowboys deserve to have their faces rubbed in their own shit because they fucking embarrassed themselves, and they did steal a game from the Lions last year, and the Lions let them fucking know about it. I love Detroit, man. I think that they are well coached. I think they are incredibly talented. And Jameson Williams, man, star yet again. I was really excited to see what he do this season, and he has been the real deal. You know who else has been the real deal, Logan, as of late, last couple weeks? How about that Caleb Williams? How about that bust Caleb Williams, as everybody was saying after 2 weeks? Another really, really good performance for him in London in a dominant win for the Bears. What did you make of that game from him? And how legit do you think the Bears, sitting now at 4-2 in just the ridiculously loaded NFC North, actually are?
Oh, the NFC North is the best division in football.
100%.
It's not even close to me. That's what's crazy is, some teams might cannibalize themselves. Like the Vikings are, riding their high horse. Detroit is riding high. Minnesota's riding high. Chicago, everybody is. They're going to have to play each other eventually. Some teams are going to drop off, and that's what's going to decide this division. The Bears are number 11 currently for me in my power rankings. I've revisited them after last week, and Chicago went from middle of the pack, league average, and they've jumped all the NFC South for me. They've jumped the Jets. They've jumped a lot of teams. The Bears are closing in on the top 10. The defense is legit. This team is tied second in takeaways right now. They are number 7 in pressure rate. They are tied 6th in sacks. They are the number 3 third down defense, and they're the number 5 red zone defense. All of the major categories, the big swing plays, sacks, pressure, takeaways, top of the league. Crucial downs, third downs, red zone, they're top of the league, and they're very talented. Montez Sweat and Jalen Johnson are 2 of the best at their position. Jalen Johnson's one of the best corners in the league. Sweat is one of the best defensive ends in the league. Like, they've got 2 very important positions, but Caleb Williams is a very important component of this. And I tried to tell people to hold out hope, man. It always makes me laugh, Carson, when people make big declarations after 2 weeks of football.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can write Caleb Williams off. It's his first 2 games, man. Like, I don't know, dude. Think about it this way. If you were training a new guy, like, let's use a job that I have experience in, a restaurant job.
Forklift. Oh, I thought you were going to say forklift driving.
Well, that's a funny story. I did
high risk, high reward profession.
My first time I ever rode the forklift, man. First of all, not to air my boss out at Lowe's, I told him that I had practiced on the forklift the day before I came in. He did not watch me lift a pallet. He didn't watch me lift any wood. He said, all right. And then he just signed off on my paperwork. And
let's
he
get
let
a
me
full
go
name
drive
and an
the
address
forklift.
on him. Let's really hold him accountable for negligence in the workplace.
I will not. I'm not going to snitches get stitches, man. I'm not going to do that to my boy.
Right,
but I felt all big and bad, and I went in to move the cinder blocks in from outside because that's what you do every morning when you first clock in. And
7 children died.
I tried to explain it to people. The difference in driving a forklift and a car, if you haven't done it, the car, you drive normally and you're going to swing the back end out last. So you're going to drive it normally. With the forklift, the big difference is you drive it forward first and then you swing the ass end out. So, so you don't. I tried to drive the forklift like a car, and I slammed the forklift into the sliding doors and I broke them off their hinges. That was my first time driving a forklift. Basically,
forklift hour with Logan Camden, ladies and gentlemen. We got to make that a regular segment. Come on now.
Basically, what I'm saying is, if you had judged me off my first time training and driving the forklift, you would have thought, man, this guy's a jackass. He's one of the worst I've ever seen. He has no idea what he's doing. If you judged
drunk.
If you judge Caleb Williams off his first game, you would have gone. I did work with a guy that drove a forklift drunk one time, though. And
that's what I'm saying. This is why it's got to be a regular segment. No, don't spoil it on now. Save that for next week. Come on.
I will. But if you judge Caleb off his first time playing in an NFL game, it takes some time, man. And then I became the forklift master. I was whipping 16-foot boards into there, man. I was running the show. And I don't want to glaze him too much. Holy shit, dude. He was everything I had waited to see in this game. It was awesome. Carson, the throws, the arm talent, the ball jumps off of his shoulder, the zip he was putting on these balls, the windows, he is fitting them in between, the play extension. You can get on me for glazing him or whatever you want. It was a star-making performance. It was a star-level performance out of Caleb. The special stuff he was doing, the play extension, rolling out of the pocket and finding guys, the scrambling that we saw in the first half. Caleb single-handedly gets them points at the end of the first half by breaking off 2 big scrambles. Earlier in this game, they use a read option with Caleb. So we already knew about the talent. The talent did not surprise me because I saw all the talent at USC. What I really liked seeing from Caleb today was the union of the special talent and playmaking and the ability with the composure, the confidence, and just being comfortable. Him getting through his progressions quickly. It was night and day. The difference between his first game and this game, he looked so much more comfortable. He looked so much more composed. I knew the talent was there. I knew the skill was, the arm, the scrambling ability. But today he put it together with being comfortable. He looked like a star quarterback. I was astounded, Carson. I wasn't surprised, but because I expected this. But to have it come so soon, I still would take Caleb over Jayden. I know Jayden has shown us a lot, man. But again, man, this is why we said that Caleb was one of the greatest prospects ever, is because he can do stuff on the football field that guys just can't. Mm-hmm. And I still believe that, man. I think Caleb's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL one day, man. He can just do special stuff that other quarterbacks can.
I agree with you completely. Never wavered for a second on the feeling that he's going to be a superstar in this league, that he's going to be a top 5 quarterback, as you say. Talent's too overwhelming. And week after week, he has just gotten better and better and better and put together all of the aspects that can make his game so special. You mentioned a couple of sensational scrambles in this game. Really just one bad moment. He did underthrow a ball into double coverage, trying to go deep to DJ Moore. But I thought that he was outside of that spotless in this game. And one thing that really stood out was in the red zone, right? When you're working with a little bit of a truncated field, I thought that he just did a beautiful job putting the ball where only his guys could get it. Really excellent touch and anticipation, leading them to the perfect spot on several throws. Like, that's the thing, man. This whole narrative that it's just, oh my God, backyard football. Yeah, arm talent, but what can he do with it? Is he accurate? Can he read a defense? Yes, he can do it all. He was 2 weeks into his NFL career with an abysmal offensive line, an abysmal run game, and abysmal play calling. It's an incredibly difficult situation to just get dropped off into. And injured wideouts, which was the strength of this team. Keenan Allen absent. He's been clearly impactful since he came back. Last 2 weeks, Caleb's given you 265 passing yards a game, 74% completion rate, 9.1 yards per pass attempt, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, passer rating of 129, and he's given you 90 total rushing yards and 10 yards per carry. It's versus bad defenses. Got to acknowledge that. But he's been excellent. And you see when he gets some protection and when he gets a decent run game, like facing a bad defense is damn near the only fair matchup for the Bears offensive line. Like, that's how you get him on equal footing. He's been great. He has every superstar trait physically, the arm, the mobility, the not just arm strength, but the ability to deliver the ball on the run from various different arm angles. He's clearly got a good head on his shoulders. He's learning fast. Like, I could not be more all in. To me, as much a testament to the raw talent is the progression. It's that sort of insanely rapid growth that is just extremely encouraging to me and speaks to the fact that the upside isn't just theoretical. He's going to continue to tap into it and get better and better and better.
I completely agree. And I'm glad you mentioned some of the play extension. The one play with Cole Kmet where he is flushed out right out of the pocket, the control to throw on the move, flushed out right on the run, right into his chest. The most impressive throw to me in this game, though, do you remember who he threw the touchdown to in the back corner of the right end zone?
Keenan Allen.
That play right there, it may not look like anything special, but when he snapped that football, Caleb is looking left and in the middle of the field the entire way. And the defense is looking at Caleb's eyes. And so what that does is they're all looking for the play to happen on the left or in the middle of the field. And in one motion, Caleb shifts his body and his eyes over to Keenan on the right side and doesn't hesitate to fire that ball. It just caused it caught the defense off guard. It caught them a little lulled because they didn't expect him to work his way back to the right side of the field. The ability to get through his progressions that fast, to deceive the defense with his eyes and his body, but to also know that Keenan's going to come open on that side of the field. It was a really professional play. It was a veteran quarterback play. And like you said, man, the growth hasn't been incremental. It's been exponential. And we've seen that over the past 2 weeks. It's remarkable, man. I'm not surprised. I thought Caleb was going to do this. Again, it's rookie quarterbacks. It's like you always talk about with rookie guards, Carson. We cannot be quick to judge rookie guards in the NBA because they're inefficient or they're making bad decisions. It's a part of the growing pains with quarterbacks. And it's not uncharacteristic for a rookie quarterback to play a bad first 2 weeks or to look over. It's the NFL, man. It's going to be tough. But he has looked so much more comfortable these past 2 weeks, and it gives me that much more confidence that Caleb's going to figure it all out because he kind of has these past 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's definitely on an excellent trajectory. And the Bears offense as a whole is definitely going to be tested more when they face better defenses, right? You don't face the Panthers and the Jaguars every week, 100%. But I couldn't be higher on Caleb Williams. And I would still, as I have said this entire time, stick with him to start my franchise. over Jayden Daniels. I just think there's still more to tap into there. I think the arm talent is so special, and Jayden, as accurate as he is, just cannot make some of the throws that Caleb Williams can make. And that to me is like the single most special trait when you look at the dudes who are dominating around the league right now. That and play extension, if you have both of them like Caleb does, and again, you're clearly, by all accounts, a quick learner and just a ferocious competitor. Checking all the boxes, man. Been super fun to see. I could not believe where the discourse was at with him over a couple games. Like maybe the most glaring instance of just the way the football news cycle works, where you have a full week to just sit and overanalyze and discuss one performance. And also a lot of people aren't even paying attention to some of the nuances and some of the extenuating circumstances and all the factors around just what was this quarterback's stat line.
It's not even that, dude. I just think people have a general disdain for Caleb because he likes to
100% agree with that.
Because he likes to paint his nails or something like that. Like the amount of just outright hate I have seen for Caleb, one, because he wears his heart on his sleeve, and two, as a person, I don't mind that as a trait in a normal person. I will say in my quarterback, I would rather have a guy with like a Jordan Love demeanor. I don't love that, but he's passionate. Like someone mentioned in the comment section, he's passionate, and I can live with that as a quarterback. Like him crying in his mama's shoulders at USC. Oh my God, you're going to hate on the kid because he cares about winning and losing? Good. I want a guy that cares about winning and losing. It's kind of the most important thing. And like you see it today, he throws a touchdown pass and he is screaming and hollering. He's fired up. But again, man, I think it's like, I don't know if it's like homophobia or guys not confident
100%.
in their bodies. It's like, again, people, oh, well, Caleb likes to paint his nails. It's like when people comment on my bald head. It's like, it's my head, bro. It's not yours. Why are you worried about my head, bro?
Talk to him.
Why are you worried about another man's nails? You're weird.
No, I completely agree, dude. The politicization of Caleb Williams just being himself has been so stupid. And as I said repeatedly throughout the draft process, it's just going to make a lot of people look really stupid long-term, not just because their takes on him as an individual are, to me, completely off base and ridiculous. And as you mentioned, focus on your own stuff. It's also just skewed people's quote unquote analysis of an obviously generational football talent who's going to be great in this league.
It's like confirmation bias, you know?
Yeah. But if you want a guy to suck just because you don't like what he represents, guess what? That's not a good way to analyze the game of football. And there are a lot of victory laps after 1 week, 2 weeks. They're going to look really, really, really stupid and already are starting to. But anyways, we've talked about the Caleb side of this. On the Bears overall, you say you have them at 11 in your power rankings.
Yeah.
I think they have an outside playoff shot. I think the defense is there. I think the defense is really, really good. I do need to see the offense hold up against a decent defense. I believe in Caleb, but I don't think we can overlook how disastrous the run game and the line were against decent defenses. Like that just makes it hard for this offense to be functional, especially for a rookie quarterback, for any rookie quarterback. So I think they have a chance because I think Caleb is playing at a level now. And with this receiving core, the run game has found something. But again, it's been against bad defenses. Like they're checking a lot of boxes. Let's just see how the offense does look against better defenses when we're talking about what kind of noise they can actually make this year. And also, it's hard for 4 teams in one division to make the playoffs. And if we're ranking NFC North teams, the Bears are 4th. And they have beat up on some bad teams up to this point. So I love Caleb. I love this defense. But there are still some difficult circumstances for them being a playoff team this year. I'm definitely not ruling it out, but I'd say it's a below than 50% chance to me.
I mean, definitely. I don't try to let that cloud like where I put teams in my power rankings, like a playoff chance.
Right.
I more gauge it just like off, you know, how confident would I be in you to win an individual game? Exactly.
Yeah,
so
totally.
To me, like here's a good example. And again, I always go back to the Steelers because they have such a vanilla formula, the win defensively, squeeze you out offensively. I have the Bears concretely in a tier above the Steelers to me because there's actual upside with the Bears offense. Like, and I know the Steelers offense puts up 32 points today. the Bears have a different kind of ceiling that they can tap into week to week because Caleb is that special. He can gash you so heavily through the air. Like that, and that's the difference. It's like they're in a tier for me, at least, with like the Chargers, the Seahawks, good like contending teams that
I
could
think that's
sneak into
exactly
the
right.
playoffs.
I think that's exactly right. I think they're a slightly above average football team. They are in that mix where they're going to have a shot at it. I think it'd be really hard for them to win a playoff game this year. But what I will say, Caleb's going to keep building momentum, dude, because they have the bye. Then they face Washington, which is going to be such a fun game. But like, although Washington is the better team probably and would be slightly favored, they're close.
Really?
But I do think Washington is slightly better. I just think that offense is so hard to stop. But like Caleb should eat facing that defense.
Well, to be fair, that's not a crazy I have the Commanders in Chicago, and Washington's also in that Seattle, Chicago tier to me, LA.
Yeah.
I would take Chicago in that game. I think I would take Chicago. I just think that they're better on not both sides of the ball, but like
they're more balanced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely more balanced. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, definitely the defense has the potential to wreak a little bit of havoc, but again, that Washington offense is
that is gonna be an awesome game, though, man.
Yeah, but then they go at the Cardinals. That's another bad defense. Like they're on a little run of Mickey Mouse defenses here, where Caleb is going to keep racking up some numbers, and good for him, man. And the Bears could keep racking up wins. Real quick, what will you do if Doug Peterson still has a job tomorrow? Twerk? Will you twerk? Will you wear the gimp suit?
Well, technically, I have to wear the gimp suit anyway. And
true. You also have to do your stand-up routine, pal. You're not getting off.
I don't want to do that, man.
You have to. I know I have to. Now, the next football season is almost halfway over now. Let's go. Chop, chop. Find a local comedy club. It's a hilarious bit. They'll love it.
They will hate it. I will get booed off stage.
Yes, actually. And it'll be a great time for everybody there. But seriously, if Doug Peterson still has a job tomorrow.
I mean, it's just a comedy of
jump in the Atlantic.
Dude, it's just a comedy of errors, bro. Like that's what I wrote down for the Jags in this game, is like it is just comical how bad they are.
Would you blow up Jacksonville? Would you blow up Jacksonville?
I'm trying to. Don't quote me. Don't take this out of context. I'm actively working on a plan to figure it out, man.
No, seriously, don't quote him on that.
I got nothing. I mean, I look at like Jacksonville is like it's like Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Carolina, just the
America's greatest cities,
the dusty recesses of the NFL, man.
Yeah, pathetic. If they keep Doug Peterson on,
what are they waiting on? What are they waiting on?
I guess they need to lose by 70. They need to lose by 70 to a team that is well below 500.
Dude, I just don't think. I think it speaks to Shad Khan. I don't think Shad Khan knows what the hell is going on, man. I think he's out of touch.
Yeah, I agree completely. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break for some words from DraftKings. After that, we will get to the other rookie quarterbacks who debuted today after our friends at DraftKings have some words that will be spoken by us. The roller coaster of an NFL season is moving right along, and it promises to be a month full of tricks, treats, and of course, touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the #1 place to bet touchdowns.
Running it in from the 1 or an 80-yard bomb, we don't care how they score touchdowns. We want to bet on them. DraftKings heard us and is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick.
Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Logan, the people in the chat are begging for Drake Maye discourse, and they're about to get it. Drake Maye, 3rd overall pick, made his debut for the Pats today. It was a blowout loss to the Texans, but the kid himself threw 3 tutties. What did you take away from his debut?
I've said this before. I said it at the end of my Jayden Daniels video. I think we are looking at like potentially one of the greatest quarterback draft classes of all time, man. When you think of the great, QB classes ever, right? You think of Elway and Marino, you think of '04 with Eli, with Big Ben, with Phillip Rivers. And I think this one has the potential to it, just with the raw abilities of these guys. And
2020, let's not kid ourselves.
yeah,
2020
true,
is going to
true.
be there with
Lamar, Josh
Burrow and
Allen.
Herbert. No, that's
Oh,
2018.
that's fair. Yeah.
2020 is Burrow, Herbert, Love. Tua
To
is fine, but I mean, that's a pretty damn good big three.
It is. I think this one has the chance to be one of the greatest ever, though. And specifically, I think it's so interesting that all the three guys at the top of this year's class have such similarities to the three best quarterbacks in the NFL today. Caleb Williams' comp was Mahomes. Now, I think Caleb reminds me a little bit more of Rodgers than he does of Pat, but that's not a bad comp. Drake Maye, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels. I think they're just so similar, but I think all three of these
The
guys
three
have
best quarterbacks in football. It's maybe a little bold, but
I'm
I
just
love
saying,
them all.
I think the archetypes are similar enough, and those are guys that I would be confident in comping them to. And I think they've got a chance to be three of the best QBs in football. And this was an inevitability. The offense is just so much more explosive and volatile with May. You're so limited with Brissett, right? With Brissett, you have a really high floor where he's not going to make mistakes. You've got a low ceiling, though. He's not going to have a lot of shot plays. And with May, you may have more mistakes. You got a low floor, but you definitely have a high ceiling. It's just a more high risk, high reward offensive situation. And I just much prefer that. I mean, he had more TDs in this game than Brissett has had all year. Like Drake Maye is a playmaker. He's got a big arm. He is smooth mechanically. He had a beautiful ball up the sideline to Booty for his first TD.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what we saw with his legs, man. He's a good athlete. He can move. And I like his internal clock for the most part. I thought for the majority in this game, he did a good job of getting rid of the ball fast, of feeling pressure, and scrambling when he needed to. You do have the low lights, right? The first interception just badly overthrown. Never feels the pressure on that on that sack. And then the last interception, I cut him slack. That was like a deflected ball, but it's an impressive debut, man. I like the way he moved. His arm looks solid. And the offense just looks smoother. Like, I think Drake Maye is just going to instill more confidence in this football team to win games than Jacoby Brissett could. I think you're looking at a special player, man. I don't know if he's going to be as good as Jayden this year. His situation is so much tougher, but Drake Maye in no way looked overwhelmed by his circumstances. Like, he looked comfortable. He threw a beautiful ball. He moved well. Like, he fits athletically. I'm confident, man. I was waiting on this, and this is not an easy game. As you mentioned, going up against this Texans defense in your debut and performing like this, I'm very confident that Drake Maye is going to take to the league like a duck to water, man.
I should have mentioned with the 2020 class, also Jalen Hurts in there. Like,
True,
that's a pretty insane quarterback class. That's a lot of dudes. I believe in Maye. I've been a believer in Maye. He was my QB2 in the draft. Jayden has obviously blown me away, but like you say, I think there's three dudes in this class. I think there are three legitimate franchise quarterbacks. The arm talent is obvious with him. I mean, it's going to be an elite arm in the league. His mobility is a legit plus. And I think you hit on the biggest key, which I honestly think stands out with all three of these rookie quarterbacks who we're raving about. They just look unafraid. They maintain their composure. They keep their poise. He did that against a damn good defense. Like, yeah, okay, you turn the ball over 3 times. One of them, as you mentioned, not on him, but he kept coming. Like, he remained confident. He remained comfortable. Texans are a damn good defense, man, and they bring pressure as effectively as anybody else in football. The first pick was bad. He airmailed that, and his accuracy wasn't perfect. Like, that's going to have to be brushed up on. But overall, I thought it was a good debut, and I think this is a dude who has a lot to tap into in terms of upside. Now, this year, I think it's still going to be hard. I think it is a really, really exceptionally awful situation when you have both the worst offensive line and the worst receiving core in football. Like, let's not get overly excited. The Pats are going to suck this year. Drake Maye cannot save that. He's not a superhero. And like you talk about him versus Jayden, statistically, he won't be in that stratosphere. I think Caleb will outproduce him statistically this year. He's in a horrible, horrible situation. And also those two guys are just extremely talented quarterbacks. But I do think that this is an encouraging debut. And I think if you're the Pats, like you say, not only are you excited to actually see what you have for the future, like you have reason to play football games now. You feel like you have a dude who can at least go out there and win you a game, whereas Jacoby was going to try his best not to lose you a game, and in doing so was going to lose you a game because you're averaging 140 passing yards per game. So that's really all that I have to say about that. Shout out Drake Maye. Excited to see what else he can do. Let's talk about a team that won, Logan, but didn't win in very impressive fashion. The Philadelphia Eagles sneak one out against the Cleveland Browns with their dudes back and healthy, with Devontae and A.J. Brown back out there in the receiving core. But are you worried about them despite the win?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles steadily continue to fall in my power rankings. Like, they are where they are because they're poorly coached. And the biggest difference is, you think about the Super Bowl team, and I know that everybody talked about this after the Super Bowl, the regression that we may see because you lost two important coordinators. But I really think you're seeing it's like how bad of a coach Sirianni is and how this team just is not prepared. Steichen, you lose, obviously, head coach of the Colts. Jonathan Gannon goes on and gets a head coaching job with the Cardinals. The defense has significantly regressed. The front just isn't the same. They were 29th in sacks entering this week. They're 28th in pressure rate. I get it. They sacked Deshaun Watson 5 times. Cool. The Browns' offensive line.
Deshaun Watson 5 times. That's a down week against Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I was going to say, dude, the Browns' offensive line is literally dead last in pressures allowed, QB hits, pressure rate. Any offensive line stat, the Browns are probably dead last in this season.
And Deshaun Watson is first in running around like a chicken with his head cut off and running into sacks.
Very true. Secondary is very suspect. You see the depth of this unit. Ringo's playing big snaps because Darius Slay is out. I still don't trust them. And, don't get me wrong. They're playing the Browns. So it's I'm not expecting the Browns have been the worst third down offense in football too. I'm just not going to celebrate this defense playing good against an offense this bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing to me is I just don't trust Jalen Hurts, man. Hurts' stock continues to fall for me. I think Hurts is a tush-push merchant, and he's an A.J. Brown merchant. A.J. Brown's the most important player in this offense. I found a stat that blew my mind. The Eagles' offense averages 27 points per game with A.J. Brown and just 17 points per game without A.J. Brown. There's a 10-point-per-game difference since he joined the roster with or without him. That's huge. And, when you're looking at the hierarchy, A.J. Brown, I think, is this team's most important offensive player, followed by Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, and then Jalen Hurts. I just don't think Jalen Hurts is that good. And
what about the offensive line? Are we just counting the offensive line as a collective? Because Mailata, Lane Johnson, those are elite football players.
Landon Dickerson. I mean, Hurts is one of the.
Can we get Jalen Hurts down to number 11 on the offense?
We could probably do it. We could get damn close, man.
Goddard, let's not discount Goddard.
Right?
Damn good tight end.
So, I mean, to me, we've talked about this. I just don't think I've been as severe as I've needed to be about the Eagles and their situation. The QB has regressed. The defense has significantly regressed. And the coaching staff stinks. You put that together, and what do you have? A bad but talented football team. And so, sure, they win this one. Their record doesn't look that bad. And they're one Saquon catch away from having one more win under their belt. But all that being said, they have not had a convincing win to me all year long. And for that, I mean, Philly's closer to Dallas than they are a real contender to me. Dallas is
Washington top dog in the division to you then?
No, to me, it's Philly, Washington, Dallas, but they're all the NFC East is closer to the NFC South than a better, more competitive division to me. They're 3 mediocre teams competing for that top spot. The Eagles continue to fall out of contender tier to me. They're not in contender tier to me in the NFC. They are just outside of it with the playoff hopefuls who hope to win a playoff game. And that's just not where you want to be. They're closer to the Bucks and the Falcons of the NFC of the world than the Vikings or the Niners or the Lions to me. Mm-hmm. And that's concrete. The defense is not good enough. The quarterback is not good enough. The coaching staff isn't good enough. Those are the 3 biggest areas of your football team.
Yeah. It's a very disappointing situation in Philly. I don't know if I'd say I'm hitting the panic button because it's what did we see that's really new? It's more just continually underwhelming football, continually underachieving in some of these key areas. They haven't scored in the first quarter all season, Logan. And Jalen Hurts opens this game up 1 for 6. And they weren't even efficient running the ball today. And they get one huge chunk play to A.J. Brown. They get one huge chunk play to Devontae Smith. Like, your star playmakers come through just enough for you to win this football game. But the offense was very hot and cold. And outside of those couple plays, it was mostly cold. And as you say, this doesn't move me on the defense at all. The Browns offense sucks. Everybody sacks Deshaun Watson 5 times in a game. The Browns averaged under 16 points per game coming into this one. They put up 16 points in this one. One of the touchdowns was the blocked field goals, but like, I'm just waiting for the day the Eagles impress me, that they put it together. Because as you say, where's the convincing win? The Packers game was good. That was pretty good. But since then, the Falcons game wasn't great, and they let that one slip away. The Saints game, good win, but rough. I mean, they win that one by the end, down their 2 best receivers, so props to the defense. Bucks, they got manhandled. They're shorthanded, but the defense was awful in that game. Like, the talent just exceeds the production and the results by so much, as it did last year. So no, I'm not buying in on this becoming a good defense. No, I'm not buying in on the Jalen Hurts resurgence. No, I'm not buying in on Nick Sirianni. I don't know that I could call them a mediocre football team. That's what they've been. I still think maybe I'm crazy that they can and should be better than this, because just think about the offense, bro. Think about the offense. They have high-level starters at every position, except I don't think Hurts is a high-level starting quarterback right now, but he's okay. He's mediocre at the very least. We've seen him captain elite offenses. He doesn't hold you back. And then defensively, we know they still have some elite talent, but I'm just out on the defensive side of the ball for them. I'm not going to buy it. And everything just feels bad, dude. The home fans are booing Sirianni. And what does he do? He starts jawing at them. This dude is such a jackass, bro. He doesn't get it. Like, where does this arrogance come from? Where does this hubris come from? You're a brilliant fucking CEO of the team, man. Your stock is tanking. It's been tanking for a full year now. You had one of the most embarrassing collapses I've ever seen to a football season last year. Here you are, a very underwhelming 3-2. You're mad at your home fans? It's Philly sports, man. Get used to it.
Well, I mean,
they're going how it is. You're not living up to expectations whatsoever. And everybody looks at you and they go, he's the jackass who's doing nothing to elevate this team that's over-talented and underachieving. Of course they're mad at you. You can't see that. You can't even conceptualize that in that moment you should look to your fan base, the people who you are ostensibly doing this for, right? Who fund your career, and you can't own it and say, we need to be better. You can't even go with boilerplate. That's on me. We got to improve. Like, you understand what is expected of a coach who, again, doesn't call plays on either side of the football? What sort of emotional leader are you? He's just a jackass, dude. I'm so out on Sirianni.
Oh, he sucks. I mean, and I was just about to say, dude, you took the words out of my mouth. Like, Philly's going to keep it real with you. They're going to be honest with you. Like, you may not like him. He's your friend who isn't going to sugarcoat it for you. That's what the Philly fan base is. And you know what? That friend is better because they're going to be honest with you. You know, they're just going to
burn the city to the ground, win or lose.
And
street signs are coming out of the ground.
They're going to tell you the truth. And you'd rather have your friend that's going to tell you the truth about your situation than just coddle you. And, you know, and they expect more. Everybody expects more. And you're right, dude. I don't know what Sirianni does other than sit there watching flies come out his mouth as he slack-jawed on the sideline with his mouth gaping open. And also, I don't know, man. I've never coached football, but, like, can we dress up a little bit? Sirianni, you look...
You're a conventional guy, Logan Camden.
He looks like he's doing a Bill Belichick impression. His beard's all nasty looking, man. He's got the cut-off hoodie. He just looks grody. But go take a shower, Sirianni. Put on a polo, bro. Like, I don't know, man. I don't like my coach looking homely, man. You look like you just rolled off the couch.
Let's get him in the Tom Landry suit and fedora. Let's get him in the Bear Bryant fit.
Man,
you know, football used to mean something in this country, Logan, and Nick Sirianni has single-handedly degraded it.
It's funny that you point that out because it's like, you think about the 70s, right? Landry had the fedora, and the contrast was Chuck Noll showing up in his sweatshirt and his khakis. But it's like, damn, man, we can't even get Sirianni to put on a pair of slacks and a polo. We can't even get the Harbaugh look. He looks serious, man. Sirianni looks like he just rolled off his couch to come coach a football game.
Look, man, I'm
Sirianni just
pro
makes me
casual
mad.
dressing. I'm going to take a stance on this one for everybody out there who likes being in a t-shirt and shorts. Because you know what I'm wearing right now, Logan? T-shirt and shorts, baby. And that's what I'm going to wear until
I'd
the day
prefer
I
it.
die.
I'd prefer it if my coach put on pads and a jersey and dressed out like the football team, like baseball managers.
Well, that could be definitely inspirational, except when Nick Sirianni does it, in which case it would be corny as hell. So the Eagles, to me, are still the favorite in the division. As much as I like the Commanders, it's just like Philly's offense, I still think can be elite. Even with Hurts playing mediocre football, I still think they can be, knocking on the top 5 of offenses. And no, I'm not buying in on the defense being good. I do still think the defense is better than Washington. So, yeah, they are a slight favorite in the division, but no, they're not in contending conversations. They haven't done anything to put themselves in those conversations, which is just so disappointing considering the names on this football team. Let's talk about another team, Logan, that started out hot in the NFC, but now has fallen off a cliff, losing 4 straight football games. The New Orleans Saints allow a 50 burger in this one to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're without Derek Carr. We get the Spencer Rattler debut in this one. How worried are you about New Orleans?
I'm not super worried about New Orleans because my expectations were never super high for them. But I think this season kind of has a silver lining to it, Carson. I think that if they play poorly enough, they can justify firing Dennis Allen for having a bad year, and then they can promote Clint Kubiak to head coach at the end of this season. And that's what I think they should do. That's what this game said to me. And I thought Spencer Rattler played a decent game, and it surprised me because I don't think Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback. Now, I was impressed with his mobility in this game, some of the self-creation we saw, some of the throws, but I chalk up his composure and preparedness to Clint Kubiak. Like, that's what it says to me, like him operating his system. The offense just seems so well coached. The entirety of the offense seems so well prepared and aware of their responsibilities. And you think of the archetype of the most valuable coaches in the NFL today: Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. And so I asked myself, who are some of these guys that I'd want to pair with a young franchise quarterback? Ben Johnson, Clint Kubiak. Clint Kubiak is the most important and valuable person in the Saints building, and I hope they realize that. I've never been a Dennis Allen fan. I haven't been a Dennis Allen fan since he coached the Raiders way back in the mid-2010s. I'm still not a Dennis Allen fan. So my take after this game, I don't have expectations for the Saints the rest of the way. In the NFC South, honestly, the hole's not that deep. If they win a couple of division games, they could probably figure out a way to be competitive towards the end of the season where they could be in a position to potentially win the South. I don't think they're good enough to do that, but the division's poor enough to where it's still probably an opportunity. But that's my take. I think they need to promote Clint Kubiak to head coach, or at the end of this season, can Dennis Allen and let him go, because Rattler did throw for 243 yards and a TD. And I still don't like his demeanor. I've never liked his attitude. I've never liked his leadership skills. But
I don't think he did anything in this game.
Well, not in this game but earlier when he was in high school and in college, I didn't
Definitely
like some
in
of
high
that
school.
stuff. But he looked better in this. He looked like a guy who can play at the NFL level, which is, I didn't think Spencer Rattler was ever an NFL quarterback. And again, I chalk that up to Clint Kubiak. And so I just hope that they've taken the start to the season and how impressive their offense has been, and they give the right attribution and accreditation to Kubiak, because I think he's the most important guy in the room for them. And I just hope they realize that, because if they don't and they stick it out with Dennis Allen after this year, Clint Kubiak's going to get a head coaching job somewhere very quickly. Like, I think he is probably one of the most intriguing head coaching or offensive coordinator options, and I just hope they value him, because I think he's the most important person in their building.
Could not agree more. I think that he absolutely should be their head coach after this year. But yeah, this is really, really bad for the Saints. The defense was absolutely atrocious. They got destroyed on the ground against the Bucs team that really hasn't run the football all that successfully before this. Baker was dotting them up through the air. Outside of a couple of deflected balls that turn into interceptions, I mean, basically got what he wanted. early in this game, dude, I was thinking like, damn, Baker Mayfield has been playing at damn near an MVP level this year. I mean, he has been carrying this offense. He has been slinging that rock around. He's been scrambling more than ever. Then he does have the 3 picks in the first half, but again, 2 of them really aren't his fault. But the Bucks put up 594 yards and 8.2 yards per play in this one, man. That's an all-time offensive downpour. And the Saints allow 44 points just to the offense, taking away the defensive touchdown with 3 takeaways. So this defense that we thought was the strength of this team just completely melts down, and I think is more of an average unit overall. And I thought Rattler was okay. I think he clearly has the arm talent. He can move out there. He gives you 4 rushes for 27 yards. Definitely some misses in terms of accuracy. Pick when he was targeting Shaheed was a clear underthrow. That could have been a big chunk play if he hit it. I thought that some balls came in a little hotter than necessary. So, yeah, there's a little bit of accuracy, timing stuff there. He was sped up in some spots, I thought, but the line really wasn't playing well. And you lose Chris Olave. So, yes, you have Clint Kubiak, but you're in a tough offensive situation personnel-wise. The second pick was bad. I thought he totally forced that ball, but, like, you're kind of playing from behind. I can understand getting into a little bit of a hero ball mold at that point. Like, it was a mixed bag, but athletically, I think it's there. I thought that he was mostly willing to take checkdowns throughout this game. I thought he mostly executed the offense. It was a tough spot to walk into. I think that he did fine. Genuinely, dude. I don't know. Am I crazy for saying I think I'd rather have Spencer Rattler than Bo Nix if I were trying to start a franchise? I mean, listen, I don't want to start a franchise with either one of them. God knows. It's tough because Bo's not in a situation like this. I just think Rattler at least has balls, dude. I don't know. I think Rattler can make throws that Bo Nix simply can't.
I don't know.
Bro moaned at that.
I mean, I don't know. I think Bo hasn't looked that bad to me. Bo's had
Mickey Mouse comeback effort today.
Bo had some nice throws. Bo had some nice throws today.
Yeah, once the game was over. When the game was still a game, he
I
had
don't
like
know.
7 yards as he always does deep into the football game.
It's just going to be hard for me to. I still don't think Spencer Rattler. Like the tools are there.
I don't think either of these dudes are starters in the league. So
that's
I guess
a crazy
really
pull. That's a crazy pull, man.
Well, is it? Is it?
I don't. That's what I'm wondering. I don't know if it is, which is really making me reconsider my stock on Bo Nix.
Bo Nix is not good, man. Shout out to our big boss man, Colin Coward, who had the Knicks over Purdy take this week. I have no idea what he's talking about. I have no idea what he's watching. Bo Nix literally cannot push the ball downfield. He is so intimidated. He's so lacking in confidence.
That is what
lacking in arm talent.
That is what sticks out on tape with Bo, man, is he just looks so jittery back there.
More than half his games, he has like 6 yards going into the second half.
Shout
out to him, bro. He competed today. He made plays with his legs. He picked up a couple 4th downs, but I don't know. I think they're in the same tier at the very least. And when you're comparing a 5th rounder to the 12th pick, that's not good. That's not good. Rattler's in a better situation because of the play caller, but that's it. Like when you take Olave out of this Saints offense, you know, it's far from good personnel. But I do think this Saints team is not going to be in the playoffs, which I thought that they could after the first couple weeks. I just think some of their limitations have very much become apparent in terms of the offensive line, which I was worried about and then I thought did fine early. The depth of weapons, like I like Shaheed, I love Kamara, but
you're not a big Bub memes guy, man.
It's thin.
I'm a big Bub memes
beautiful
guy.
Touchdown, beautiful throw and catch there. I thought Rattler threw him a very nice touchdown ball. Tipton, you know, it's just like it's not a good group overall. And the defense, again, isn't quite as good as I think it looked.
They looked old. They looked old today, man.
Yeah, and I just don't know if you can really live with 4 weeks of the Carr to Rattler downgrade. I don't think Rattler's bad. I just think Carr had really been executing this offense pretty darn well, dude. Like, he's been playing like a pro, and I think that's really all you need when Clint Kubiak is calling plays. I think there's more downside with Rattler at the helm, so I think also the Bucks are better than I thought just because Baker Mayfield is kind of a superhero out there. And I think the Falcons are better. I think they're more talented overall football team. All right, Logan, we're not going to go in depth with every single game, but I'll just open this up to you. Which of the remaining winners, any of the teams that we haven't talked about, Packers, Chargers, Steelers, Texans, who won today, impressed you most?
I would like to come on here and tell you guys that I feel differently about the Steelers after we put up 32 points on Vegas. The reason I'm not, I still thought we got a mixed bag from Justin Fields today. The one thing I did like, the Steelers got the ball to George Pickens. It felt like there was a deliberate effort to get the ball to him, and it worked. Najee Harris ran with force today, like I've actually never seen before. I don't know if he heard us, Carson, but
He did. He's a fan of
wow.
the show.
And thank you, Najee, for finally putting up 20 points after I dropped your ass in fantasy. Damn, man. Like, I finally won in both of my leagues this week. This has not happened all year long, but right on cue, man. I was like, you know what, man, I'm dropping Najee. I'm done for good. And then he goes off today. But Justin's an all-time special creator with his legs, and that's why I still would take Justin over some other starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, he is a special creator with his legs. In the red zone, when he gets down there, he's a threat, and he can make throws, but there were some really bad balls in this game. I thought he was generally inaccurate, more so than he has been the rest of this year.
Definitely.
He had a bad interception to Divine Diablo that gets called back because of a roughing the passer penalty. And as I will remind people, if you did not watch the game, TJ Watt has 2 stripped forced fumbles in this game that were both recovered by the Steelers. He also forced a big one in the red zone. So, like, it's the same Steelers recipe. Great defense that suffocate. Again, we had a blocked punt that gives us great field position. Like, I'm just not moved enough by the offense yet. We ran the ball better today. We got the ball to George. Justin created with his legs, but it's nothing new. It's nothing new. And again, we did it to the Raiders against Aiden O'Connell of all people. So I'm not moved by this victory from Pittsburgh. It feels like the same old stuff. The team that did move me today is the Green Bay Packers. And I've been going to bat for them week in, week out, Carson. I know you've been a little bit underwhelmed by them, but this is a young team that just feels like they're coming together week in, week out, man. They're figuring out more and more stuff. And I don't think the Cardinals are great. That's another thing. I've come down to earth a little bit more on Arizona as the season has gone along. Yeah. I don't think this defense is good. Terrible. I think Sean Murphy Bunting is. Him and Budda Baker, I think, are solid. But this team overall just is not. And it's another reason I like Green Bay. Green Bay has one of the most explosive and volatile offenses in the NFL. It reminds me of, call me crazy, like Dallas last year, how they could just hit, Dak and CD could hit on these crazy bombs that would break games open. Like every week, if it's Dobbs, if it's Watson, if it's, Dontavian Wicks, man, I feel like if it's Jayden Reed, there are just so many guys.
Kraft, bro. You look up and just Kraft is wide open 30 yards
exactly,
downfield.
Bro. Every week it's, holy shit, busted coverage. There's a wide open guy downfield, and Jordan Love is connecting with him. That's why I like this team so much, is the defense is solid enough and their playmaking. There's a lot of young talent I like, but it's the volatility of this offense that they can run the ball in a different way than they have been able to in years previous. I like Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson on the ground more than I liked Aaron Jones. And Jordan Love is a home run hitter. Not overall. I think Aaron Jones is a really good receiving back. Aaron Jones is very good, but I like the combination of Jacobs and Wilson more on the ground. And then
give me Aaron Jones.
They're deep-wise receiving, so I don't know if it's going to make a difference in where the Packers are in my power rankings. Like, the Vikings and Packers are kind of jockeying for position in my power rankings, but they're very good, and I think the Packers are right there of being like a real deal contender. They're like the first team. Are they Super Bowl contenders? That's where I'm at with Green Bay. I'm debating if they are. They're one of my top contenders in the NFC. I don't know if they're real deal Super Bowl contenders yet, but they're teetering. They're teetering right there for me, man. I was really impressed with Green Bay today.
I was most impressed by the Packers as well. They absolutely should have been in my power rankings in my 10 spot. I was debating them and the Cowboys. Clearly, fucking big whiff on that one. Clearly, I was high off of paint. Golly, what was I thinking? The Packers, though, I have consistently viewed as like a good playoff team. I just do have some questions still about the defense. And I thought Jordan Love was being a little bit careless with the football. I've always liked Love.
I did write down.
Always necessarily, but since, he started balling last year.
What do you think about this, man? I think Love has got a little bit more Favre in him than he does Rodgers.
Oh, yes, dude. He's got big nuts and he puts them on the table. He's going to make some mistakes, but he's going to hit some big old shot plays. He loves throwing off his back foot more than any quarterback I've ever seen. He does it more than anybody and resulted in a touchdown today. Dobbs made a great adjustment on that ball, but he saw the one-on-one. He put the ball where his receiver could get it. This offense is really good. There's never been a question about that because LaFleur is brilliant and because they run the ball so effectively and it opens up so much play action, so much of their ability to take the top off of defenses then in the passing game. And Love is obviously really good. And the receiving core here is deep and I think has been underrated because there's just a bunch of dudes who can make a play for you, even though they don't have a traditional number one. But I do like Jayden Reed a lot. Shout out to him. Really, my questions have been about the defense. I thought the defense was solid in this one. I thought they did a nice job against the run. I thought they made some timely plays. It's not like they shut down Arizona because they did get a few turnovers, as has kind of been their method throughout the year. That's really just what I want to see from this defense is how do they hold up against good competition? Because I don't think Arizona's a bad offense, but like you say, I've cooled on them as the year has gone along, and I think their defense is just bad. But against Philly, Green Bay got marched on. They got burnt. Against Minnesota, they let up 31 in that game and a vast majority of that in the first half. So that's really going to be what determines their ceiling. I do think they're definitely a playoff team. And I do think Jordan Love is the dude who we saw in the second half of last year. I think he's a top 10 sort of quarterback. There's so much arm talent there. There's so much confidence. And I'm pro aggression. That's a dude who believes that he can make the throws. And I love that. That's what I want for my quarterback when he has the arm talent to complement it. And there's enough play extension and creation with him. I wasn't worried about Jordan Love, but I was just like, all right, this dude played incredible football down the stretch last year. And then he'd been a little silly, wacky, goofy with the football in the first couple games this year. And he's going to turn the ball over, but I'm okay with that, with the upside that he has. Also, the Cardinals defense sucks. Dudes were getting very open downfield, but that's what this Packers offense does. They get dudes open. So I was very impressed by them. I also want to shout out the Texans just real quick. Obviously, not much of a test against the Pats, but the thing that really stood out to me is just Joe Mixon has been a playmaker on the field
dude.
in his 2 games this year. I've not been a Joe Mixon guy. He has made this running game look completely different when he's on the field, and he's been involved as a receiver. He looked dynamic out there today, as he did in week 1. And Dameon Pierce was really effective on the ground today. So that's been the biggest question with the Houston offense. Can they run the ball? Ran the ball all over the Pats. A Pats defense that I think got overrated early in the year. I think it's really a kind of mediocre defense, but they ran the football very well. Houston did. And CJ Stroud is just unbelievable. I mean, just elite. Throws 1 pick today, not on him. Super efficient. Just continues to creep into those top 5 conversations for me because it's so consistent. He is such a machine on 3rd down, 3rd and long. He just puts you on his back and he carries you over, and he's making more plays out of structure this year, I think. Dude's a monster. Outside of that, I wasn't really impressed by the Chargers. I thought this said more about the Broncos. I really don't think that they have an NFL offense. And I do want to emphasize that when we talk about Bo. I don't think Bo is a starting quarterback in this league. I definitely don't think he's a franchise guy, but he's in a bad situation. The receiving core is really bad outside of Cortland Sutton. So I get it. He's fighting an uphill battle in that sense. But again, it's there's a threshold at which you can say, okay, the quarterback also sucks here, right? Zach Wilson can be in a bad situation with the Jets, but when they're averaging 12 points per game, it's not because Zach Wilson's actually good and he's being held back. It's because Zach Wilson also sucks. That's where I'm at with Bo Nix right now. He's played 2 decent football games. This game looks okay statistically, but again, it was bad for most of it. And then he's played several disaster classes. I just don't think he has the tools. And the more I think about it, the more I'm how was this 45-year-old man the 12th pick in the draft with no physical upside?
I disagree with that. I do think he has the talent to play in the league. That's where I disagree.
Just the mobility? Because he doesn't have the arm. I don't think he has the arm.
I think he's got the arm, and I think he's got the mobility. He does look overwhelmed. I agree with you there.
100%.
He looks overwhelmed back there in a concerning way for a young quarterback. And the situation isn't great, but I've seen him make enough throws. And that's the thing, man. It's not really about the arm or the athleticism to me. I trust those. It's the mind. Can he get through his progressions quick enough? Can he read a defense? Those are bigger concerns to me than the talent aspect of Bo Nix. And the last area where I'll cut him slack, I just wonder how tough it is for a rookie to run a Sean Payton offense, just in terms of play calling and getting all the nuances down. And no, I'm not ready to write Bo. You might be right. You could be right, Carson. I'm just not ready to write him off completely yet. I still am holding out hope. The Denver defense, though, and last thing to wrap up the show, if you want to do this with me, I kind of want to do like the top 5 defenses in the league real quick. Maybe we can do a little draft or something.
Sure.
Because one of my takes from today, man, I think the Titans are like the best 1-4 team I have ever seen, dude. The Titans are good.
They're in every game.
They have one of the best defenses in the league, dude. They're number 1 in yards per game allowed right now. They're number 1 in passing yards per game allowed. They're number 1 in passing yards per attempt. They're number 2 in yards per play allowed. They're number 1 in punt percentage. I am so impressed with his defense. The front 7, I think, is one of the best in the league. Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, Arden Key, Tavondre Sweat, they were all great in this game. I like Kenneth Murray and Ernest Jones in the middle. And then their secondary solid. Snead was obviously a big pickup in the offseason, but the guy that is shown out to me on tape is Marcus Brownlee. And I thought the reason they lost this game was because of penalties. They had 11 penalties for 114 yards. They had a bad DPI from Murray. They had a bad DPI from Snead, a DPI from Brownlee. Like, I don't know, man. I credit their defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson. They are so well coached. I think they need to be a little bit more disciplined, which comes into coaching. But I think they're among the best defenses in the league. So I'll let you get first pick. Let's go 3 rounds rapid fire here. Best defense in the league. Who would you take number 1?
Number 1, I think I probably would go Kansas City. I think that's probably the defense that I trust the most.
I'll take Minnesota too.
Okay, I wanted to take Minnesota too. I guess I'll go Denver 3 then.
That's not a bad pick. I'll take the Steelers.
Okay, I'm trying to think. I mean, the Giants are up there. The Bears are up there. I think the Titans are up there. I feel like there's somebody else who I'm missing, though, who's really good. The Jets. I'm going to take the Jets. I'm going to take the Jets.
Jets is a good pick. And then to me, it's between the Browns, Titans, and Broncos.
I already took the Broncos, buddy.
Oh, you already took the Broncos. Yeah. Then I'd go either Cleveland or Tennessee. And I'll be honest, I would take Cleveland just because the top end talent is there with Myles Garrett. You see how he wrecks a game. He blocks that field goal. They return it for a TD. He can single-handedly wreck a game in a way I don't feel like anybody on Tennessee can. And also, Cleveland's depth is insane. Owusu Koromoa, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, Denzel Ward, Delpit. That defense is still loaded. But Tennessee's next to me. Like, I think Tennessee is top 10 stamped, and I would probably have them just outside the top 5. Like, and Will freaking Levis, man. Last thing on the show.
Sure.
Dude, Will Levis is a movie character, Carson. Oh my, did you see?
I think he's a psychopath.
Dude, he tore a ball boy's ACL. I've never
That actually
seen
made me mad. That actually made me mad. Dude, because I get it, like you're trying to stay locked in or whatever. But the fact that he just walked away and didn't even look, like that pissed me off. Because sometimes dudes do that, but like, I don't know. I feel like he was probably screaming out in pain, bro. He was holding his knee, rolling around. That to me just was not something that a player of Will Levis's caliber and frankly idiocy can get away with. Like, okay, listen, bro, I don't know. I guess if you're like Patrick Mahomes and you're too locked in, whatever, it's still a dick move, but at least you're a great football player. When you turn the ball over 3 times a game, grounds for benching. If you're going to be a dick too.
I've seen Lamar knock over countless people on the sideline, and he always stops and helps them up. If it's an old man, if it's a woman, Lamar will stop and he will help somebody up. And I saw it, and I'm like, well, first of all, it's nasty. Well, he didn't even check on the guy. Just walks back to the field, man.
It's not a hard thing to do. You got 40 seconds to get the next playoff. You're good. Just give him a helping hand up or at least some acknowledgement.
You know, and I rethought the debate that we had about starting Mason Rudolph or Will Levis. And I do think Brian Callahan made the right decision because Levis does have the tools of a starting caliber NFL quarterback, the arm, the athleticism, the mobility. And because you had the bye week, I think it makes sense to not rock the boat and, change, I still do think Mason Rudolph gives this team a better chance to win games. I just think Will
I agree.
Levis is still too reckless. And again, I guess because this team is, but that's what makes me so frustrated about like this Levis Rudolph dynamic, because I think the defense is one of the best in the league. I think that they are so close. The running game's good. The offensive talent is there. It's literally just Levis cleaning up boneheaded mistakes and not being a complete dunce back there, where I just get frustrated because at this point in the season, you're kind of cooked. Like you're 1-4, and it's like, oh, we really do have no incentive to play Mason Rudolph at this point. Our season is almost over, but the defense is so good, man. They're a really good team. It just so happens that Will Levis is not ready to win football games yet.
You've loved the Titans since week 1.
They're good, man. They're a good team, top to bottom.
Solid. They're solid. All right, last question before we get out of here. Would you rather have Will Levis or Bo Nix to start your team? Either way, you're unhappy. Let's be real. I'm out on both. I would rather have Levis, though. I would rather have his tools.
Bo's tools aren't enough. Bo still is not elevated. But again, man, I don't know. He made some throws in the second half today that I liked. A couple bullets to Cortland Sutton. It's weird, though.
Sometimes he misses a throw like 5 yards short.
The throw,
like, Bo Sif, come on, buddy.
Bo Cephas, come on.
Cephas, what are we doing?
It's weird, though. That throw that he makes every game, it looks like the same throw over and over again. It's like the same one that he's hitting, a post route over the middle from the X receiver cutting back across the field. And it's one a game. It's 1 or 2 throws a game. It's the same one.
You look up, he's 6 for 13 with -4 yards. And then he hits
but let me tell you, man,
chunk play over
that
the middle
boy
of the
loves him some Jesus, man. He loves him some Jesus, man.
Because cross what?
Yeah, no, Bo loves him some Jesus, man.
He just loves the Lord.
It's not helped him. It helped another Broncos QB, Tim Tebow, but
that's true.
It did not help Bo Nix.
Didn't help Tebow as much as he would have liked at the next level.
I don't know, dude.
In college.
One of my strongest takes, man. I feel like Tebow didn't get a fair shake, man. Let that man speak up one more time, bro.
What?
Hey, bro.
Tim Tebow completing 47% of his passes.
All I'm saying is he ran for
mechanics you've ever seen.
He ran for like 650 yards and 6 tutties that year. It was ridiculous.
They tried to make him a tight end because they said, yeah, this dude certainly can't throw the football, but he's an average NFL athlete. And then they were like, damn, actually, no, he's not. Turns out the Jags are going to bring him into workout to be a tight end every year, and he's never going to make the roster. That's an insane take, Logan.
Yeah,
you know that that's not true.
No,
Tebow
I know it's not true.
Sucks,
it is sensationalist. He won a playoff game, though, and he never started, like, again, ever.
Nathan Peterman almost won a playoff game, except he came in and threw an interception.
Actually, as I say that logic is not. TJ Yates won a playoff game.
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen. But if God is working through you, then it can really happen. All right, guys. On that note, another week of football, except tomorrow we have a big game. Bills-Jets in the first game for New York since Robert Saleh's firing. Bills trying to bounce back. We will, of course, be reacting to that one because of those factors that make it a big game and because it's a Bills game, and we tend to react to those here at Nerd Sesh. So we'll see you guys then. If you're fiending for more of our content before that, the good news is there is plenty more of it. Logan actually did a video that'll get you ready for that game on the Jets offense and Aaron Rodgers and where everything went horribly wrong. Check that out. I just did a video on Cooper Flagg. So if you haven't seen, these are in-depth video breakdowns, film breakdowns that we do on our YouTube channel that are really fun. So if you want more of those, or if you want to see all of our full shows on the NFL, previewing the NBA season so far, that's on our YouTube channel, and all of the full shows you can listen to across all audio platforms. You can follow us across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, and of course, first and foremost, all of our trivia content. And you can join our Discord if you want to chat with the fellas, start a discourse. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. Sorry about my voice today. I'm glad that I didn't have any terrible coughing fits because my voice has been like this all day. God is good. I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.